All right, everybody, welcome to the I Disagree podcast. You know, I can honestly say the reason why we've named it I Disagree is because it's two words I believe that have not only changed my life, but we all wouldn't be sitting here if we didn't say I disagree. And here's basically what we stand for. In the past 3 years, there has been more disagreements, controversies, opinions, ideas, failed expectations, character reveals, surprises, disappointments, lies, beliefs, assumptions, and bullshit than ever before. Here we go. You guys ready for the first one? All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here on I Disagree podcast. I'm so excited for our guest here. We're going to get to it in just a second, but I'm very excited you guys are here to share some ideas of stuff that I believe that these two words have changed now in my life, but it's something that I think that if we sit and discuss across from the table, we're going to come up with a bunch of ideas. But before we get started, what I want to do is this. Obviously, to my right is co-host Dana, to my left, co-host Ross. But I'd like to everybody on the audience here to get to know everybody's here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start down here. We're gonna make its way around. I'm gonna make Dana and Ross, introduce the audience who they are that way. But we're gonna start with other Dana down there. We're gonna come around. Now here's what I want to know. I want to know. There's a couple things I want to know. And Dana reminded me is about to say it this week this way is married, single, career, age. What else do we want there? Kids, yes, things like that. So it's like and if there's something interesting that you want the audience to know about you, because as we get into detail, sometimes people know a little bit more about you and know where it comes from a little bit. So Dana, let's start with you.
All right. My name is Dana Spetcher. I am a Christian. I'm a wife. 20 years this year. I have 3 kids ranging in ages to 17 to 27. I have worked under Dr. Flynn. I have worked in education. I have an education background. I am a planner, so I'm not a podcaster where I don't know the questions beforehand. So keep that in mind when you are listening to my answers, because they may be like, what is she talking about? So I'm 45. I am happy to be here, though. Happy to contribute. Happy to learn. I think that's what we're all here for. So thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
My name is Brad Thiede. I'm from Greenville, Wisconsin. I have been happily married for 19 years to a little Spitfire named Carrie from New York. Just a fun little fact. We met on the Yahoo Personals way back in 2003. Before that was
early years.
That was a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
So she's my ride or die girl. We've got 3 kids. Lincoln is 17. He's a junior at Fox Valley Lutheran. And then she homeschools the other 2 kids. Jackson is 13. Anna Sophia is 9. She works for the Freedom Project. So she does online Christian classical education. She's been in education for 25 years. So we've made the decision for her to make that transition, and it's worked out really well. Me personally, I currently work for the Cintas Corporation. I've got a background in construction, doing flat work, building houses. I also umpire. It's one of my avocations, and I also coach baseball. So there is a lot going on at our house, but we keep busy and enjoy every second of it.
How old are you?
I am 48 years old.
48 years old. Ooh. 74?
75.
Oh, so 1 year behind us. Almost made the 74 club.
July 16th, 1975.
So
if anybody wants to write it down
I will never
for
forget
next
it.
year,
I
that
will
would be
never
fantastic.
forget
I know.
it. It's
Awesome.
faced my oldest birthday. Same as it's July 16th is my
Yeah.
oldest daughter Faith's birthday. So I'll never forget your birthday.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes.
You had me until you said 75. You were this close.
This close to being part of the crew.
1974. I'm Ross Skorzewski. I am one of the co-hosts, obviously, here on the I Disagree podcast. I am 48 years old, about to be 49, so I am in the 74 club, along with this man who is a few months older. He's officially 49. I'm still 48.
Yep.
Yes, my history is all over the place. I've been a butcher, a baker, and a candlestick maker. Not the candle itself, the candlestick. Pottery, absolutely. Former pastor, formerly married, was 25 years. I am divorced. I am a proud father of 2 amazing children, an 18-year-old and who's graduated. Thank God. And my daughter, who's 12, going on, well, based on the conversations over the last couple weekends, I'm saying 2022. And excited about life. pastoring was all about teaching. I wasn't the lead pastor. I was on staff with a bunch of pastors, counseling, worship, youth, you name it, counseling, all that and more. So let's just dive into the deep, and I'm excited.
But before we go on a little farther, before you go, I have to tell something unique about Ross.
Oh, no.
It's not a joke. Ross and I have been
disagree.
friends for, 17 years? You are not going to disagree on this.
Oh, I just might.
So what happened when we became friends, I went over to his house, and I went in his basement, and I was like, what the heck is this? And I'm not joking. I thought it was an art gallery. He is one of the best, what would you call it? I mean, I won't say vases, but I mean, you make best pottery.
Pottery.
He
Yeah.
does.
Oh, that wasn't a joke?
To my no.
Oh.
To my daughter.
Oh.
To my
I didn't know
daughters
that.
actually learned from him, but he can make the greatest things. I'm not joking. He's got a skill, and it's just it's fantastic. It's a unique skill that a lot of people don't think they know you have.
Well, let's throw into construction. I used to frame houses and expedite and all that as well, which I do a lot now for
Yep.
project management and the growth of the real estate and management of our properties that are doing build outs and stuff like that. Matter of fact, what we're sitting in here
Yep.
is
Product to you.
didn't exist until we came in and said,
Yeah.
we can do something more than Joanne Fabrics ever did with.
We started with. So do you disagree with me? You're extremely talented.
I
I see.
disagree that my basement looked like an actual art studio.
It
That
did. It was
one section, yes, but the other section looked more like a storage unit.
Yes.
Just FYI, Ross, I have not decorated my office, and I'm not Martha Stewart and don't really have plans to. So if you have extra
No,
decor,
you can rely on your feminine qualities for that. I will not bring my feminine qualities to the table to help.
okay,
that
well,
out.
when you need to borrow
Well,
my
you guys-
masculine ones, you can.
You guys know, but this is what it's like all day here with these two. And so it's kind of exciting.
See, like this back here, a lot of this decoration was done by a very, very masculine man who was in touch with his artistic side.
Thank you.
Yes, I could not have done any of that, and I appreciate it very much.
Which now you can
Just to
introduce
be clear.
yourself.
Anyway, my name is Dana Dilling. I'm 34. I've been married for 9 years. I have 2 boys who are kindergarten and 2nd grade. Their first day of school was today. I am a clinical nutritionist. I actually went to school for accounting. I used to be a CPA. I worked on taxes for 10 years and then decided that was definitely not what I should do with my life. I'm glad for the time that it served me, but I'm doing much better things now. I also obviously co-host this podcast, and I also have a social media site called Dana Disagrees on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram that is like dating and advice content for men. That has humor in it and is fun. He commented on it last week,
who
so
did?
you did.
You did.
What was my comment?
Your comment was, yeah, I don't know about what you have on there.
Well, it's because I haven't really looked yet.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's fine. You're just
I'm
not my
just-
target audience either, though, just to be
No.
clear. Anyway, Skip. Go ahead.
Wow, Skip, you got to follow that up.
I was gonna say.
This is like a fun group. My name is Skip Weiss. I'm a pediatric chiropractor here in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm 40 years old. I have a 15-year-old daughter, a 12-year-old son. I've been taking care of kids for 15 years. I've known Dr. Patrick for 15 years. I've known Dana for a little bit over 2 now. We just get down to the nitty-gritty of everything. We're Christians. We run a very faith-based chiropractic office. My wife and I have a podcast that we've been doing since January. I have my own personal podcast that has been around for over 4 years. It's got hundreds of thousands of downloads. Just getting out as much family practice knowledge as I possibly can to create communities for people around us is what we need. We need support, and that's what we're all about. That's what I do. And I'm also an investor. I'm heavily involved in multiple businesses besides just chiropractic. You will find that with a lot of chiropractors. We do more than just take care of people. What happens is we want to start creating communities to increase the health of the world. And you can't just do that from 4 walls in your office. So, yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate you guys.
Doc, what's the name of the podcast so people know?
Prime Pediatric Podcast was my pediatric version. Now we have the Prime Podcast, and that's Dr. Julie and I on there. Faith-based, financial-based, health-based, just we get on and talk every week about whatever the hell we want to, and it's for our community here in Green Bay, and it's very similar to this. That's why when you started this side of it, I'm like, dang, Dr. Pat, like you're right on top. Like we think a lot alike a lot of the time, and there's reasons for that, but it's because of the impact we want to create.
Excellent. Nicolette.
Awesome. I'm sitting at a pretty cool table right now.
It's amazing people.
Yeah, this is great. So, hi, I'm Nicolette Lentz. I'm 35 years old. I'm married. I have 4 kids. It's my second marriage. So, my oldest is 14, Brady, he's 14. And my youngest, Arthur, is 8 months old. So, we're doing a little bit of a restart. Actually, 4 total, 2 girls in the middle, just started 3rd and 6th today. Go Kimberly Papermakers. And a football player, so I have to say that. I've been working 15 years in the BPO industry. I kind of worked my way up as a single mom, ended up meeting my husband at work. He's lovely. Give him a little shout out. He took on my 3 kids and me, and we're kind of starting over. Being the single mom with the 3 kids, you do what you have to do. We face a lot of medical things, anything else people in the community face. So I really love to see this opportunity to just talk with people in the community and just keep spreading that awareness. I'm actually going to be ending my job here in about a week or so, as soon as I wrap things up. As we all know, that can be a lot after 15 years, and it's been bittersweet, but I'm really excited to kind of move home and be there for my kids, because it goes so fast.
Excellent.
So thank you for having me.
Thanks you all for being here.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Now, the purpose of the podcast is one time Dana and I were sitting around and we just started just writing stuff. And we came up with the basis. We did it on our first try. It's like in the past 3 years, there has been more disagreements, controversies, opinions, ideas, failed expectations, character reveals, surprises, disappointments, lies, beliefs, assumptions, and bullcrap than ever before. So the purpose of that bullshit
is the
you're
word.
saying.
Thank you.
We see it. There we go.
It was
I know I said
my
bull
word.
crap.
So
That's
I
right.
care.
Good
My
point.
one word.
That's the one where you added to it.
That's the only one I added to it.
That's right.
So we're not going to censor it.
My one word.
I censor.
You just
I was
did.
like, I had the word crap in my head for some reason that way. So, and
I
on
know, you're
purpose,
facing Ross.
because I've, and Dr.
love
Skip
you.
and I, Dr. Skip will join us because we've been friends, for, like I said, for 15 years. Amazing doc, and we've always had a different perspective of healthcare, and it's allowed us to do things. So this is a different perspective, but on topics we talked about. If you're in healthcare, and that's all started, and then our life turned into, of course, he moved into more pediatric. I moved more into, females and hormones and stuff. And so, of course, then I had to talk about men and women, that there's a great difference. So our topics tonight always are healthcare, men and women, politics, and religion, because it's all connected. Do you understand? And so it's going to be kind of neat. And what I want you guys to do is I'm going to make a bold statement. And as you can see, even being as close as I have been to Ross for a long period of time, we can be very close and still disagree. But the only thing I want people to do is this, as I want people to be able, if you disagree, I want you to be able to articulate why you agree or disagree with anything. Because I have no problem if someone believes totally opposite of mine, as long as they can explain it. And it could be just, I just believe this. And I have no problem with that. But then, because people sometimes you ever notice people so emphatically speak about something so passionately, and you find out that it's just because something their mom told them.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that as long as that's the reason. Do you understand? As long as you come with the reason. But most people, you really find out, and that they'll disagree with you adamantly. It's just something they don't want to let go of that they learned as a child. You understand? I've always said this when it came to technology. If you didn't grow up with it, something new is very scary. You understand? It's like when the internet came out, everybody thought it was going to kill everybody. And man, in the Christian world, because I think the majority of us here are Christian people, and the fact is and if you didn't have it in your kid and it was new, it came from Satan, you're going to die from it. And I know you see it all the time in over spiritual. It's like, okay, there's a phone. There's got to be some satanic 666 somewhere. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's just the nature of having. See, we all laugh because we've all heard and been through this stuff. But here's what happens: is this. Also remember, when we're going to talk about stuff, here's one thing I laugh about. When we speak about things and we talk about it in general, people always want to argue the exceptions. But that's not the general rules. Do you understand? As these two have their conversations, which are very entertaining if you ever get to hang out with us during the day, is if you notice what happens she just talked about having some more feminine quality, more masculine quality. Well, just understand, that's not the rule, that's the exception. And people want to argue the exceptions, act like they're normal. That's not really true. And it's very difficult to run society or run a business on exceptions, not the rules. And so that's one thing I want to go over as we go through these things. So I'm changing up a little bit today. My co-hosts do not know this. Okay? So, see, look at.
They look really excited.
They are.
Well, we're now in the same boat as you.
We're in this
Yeah.
together.
Yes, see, Dana
All my
put
notes for preparation just go right.
Well,
Yep.
what happened?
Exactly.
We're in
I've
this
been-
together.
I've been because it's so nice having amazing people like you guys come on, and I so appreciate it. I really do. And our first couple shows, our first 3 shows, which right now the one is airing right now live. It's kind of nice. They've done extremely well. The one thing that you guys are going to notice, and Skip, you've had a podcast before, that you'll do a show and people will start to message you. Mm-hmm. And then you get some of the ideas sometimes from those people because they're listening. There's concerns, there's questions they have that way. And it could be on healthcare, it could be anything that way. It could be on finance, anything you're talking about. So it happened, I had the people talk about it and they loved our dialogue and loved our things. But there's a couple things that they wanted to know about a little bit. So I had a couple questions that came from our audience that's watching the show, and they're like, I'm going to be an avid listener now. And I said, but here's what happened, is they wanted to kind of know a little difference between the feminine and masculine stuff on how we define it. So what I did, and so what I'm going to do is this, is I'm going to set the stage, and I want you guys to do me a favor. Now let's talk about the rules, not the exceptions. So I'm going to list some of these characteristics, okay? I'm going to list some characteristics, and I want you to go around. Dana, we'll start with you, and just all I want.
D1 or D2?
Wait, which one's one? Okay, you're D1.
I'm
You're
D1 tonight.
Division
Okay.
1.
Yeah. I'm older. Okay.
Division 2.
Okay, so I'm gonna list these characteristics, and just in general, rules out in the world. Okay, would you consider these more masculine traits or feminine traits? So I'm gonna give a list of them, and first, and then Dana, I'm gonna do you, and then you. We're gonna go around. Okay. So we're gonna use these: competitive, confident, decisive, aggressive, independent, courageous, laser focused, self-reliant, self-promoting, risk taker, separate, leader, bold. Okay, just in those general ideas of those characteristics, would you see them as more masculine or feminine?
Masculine.
Okay.
Masculine.
Masculine.
Definitely masculine.
Masculine.
Majority of them are masculine.
Yeah. Yep. Remember, rules, not the exceptions.
Just had to call that out.
And I want to point that out. Whenever you have conversations with people, do you ever notice, I've noticed a lot, most people want to always argue the exceptions. And I'll use a very touchy subject, and I've been very, very open about this. I'm more of a pro-life person, okay? And the minute you talk about pro-life, immediately what do most pro-choice people run to talk about?
Right.
The exception.
The exceptions. Yep. And then they want to argue, say, okay, no, just for a general rule. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with this thing? And they go, yes, but I'm like, no. We'll talk about the but later, but can we set the rules down? In society, we have to do that too. We have to set the rules down that way. So now let's do this. Let's take on these other characteristics. Okay, here we go. All right. And Dana, we'll start with you again. D1, we're going to start with you on this one. Compassionate, nurturing, creative, patient, sensitive, multitasker, supportive, grateful, humble, follower, connector, patient. Oh, said that twice. Okay. Dana, would you consider that more feminine or more masculine?
Feminine.
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 Yep. Feminine.
I would agree. Feminine traits.
Yep. Trait.
Yep.
Okay. So as we set those rules down, okay. Now, if you think of it this way, how long have you worked for Cintas?
7 years.
Yeah. So we all have enough business experience, and you've owned your own business for how many years? 15 years now.
15.
Yeah. And you're like me. You invest in other things besides that. Mm-hmm. Well, so we have to look at overall society and how it works. And that was the one thing that was interesting because our audience has been looking and going, okay, listen, we see that we're talking about that way, and we see there's so much, division because we can't come to some agreement on certain things. And I said, yeah, because you ever notice people, they will polarize about the exceptions, not the rules. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to do, we're going to cover 2 questions. Now the questions are the same. Okay, but I want to change up a little bit and set the stage for everybody to have a little. But I did change the question a little bit, so the questions you guys got, it's the same, but it's a little bit different. So here we go. And now what I want to do is this, and we're going to start around the room. And D1, we're going to start with you. Dana, we're going to start with you because here's what happens: this. If you agree with this, great. You can say I agree, but then I want you to articulate why you agree with it. Because it's okay to agree with somebody because it sounds fun, but if you want to have a conversation with people, because 2 more things I want to talk about before we make a statement. Do you ever notice that, I've always said this, I think that people set catchphrases out there because it sounds really good, but it can lead to bad things. Let me give you an example. We all go to, family functions and holidays and hang out with friends this way. Do you ever notice they always tell you holidays, never discuss religion or politics? See, you're already saying it. Mm-hmm. And I think that is one of the biggest misleading things that they've actually wanted to portray to people because there's no deep discussions. Mm-hmm. There's no having some conflict and actually figuring, I say this, you can conflict and it can bring you closer. Without conflict, you can't get close. because you can't get beyond that surface things. And so it's just like when I tell people, and a little bit something that makes a little bit more sense too, but it drives people nuts when I talk about this. When people come to me and we'll talk about business, and Skip, like, I got a question for you on this because I guarantee you've dealt with this, okay? And we've never had this conversation, but I guarantee you've dealt with this. You will get excited about business. You'll talk about certain success things. You talk about money you make and some of the things that, and then you'll have somebody that'll say to you, "But Skip, money doesn't bring happiness." See, look at the face.
Right. Money brings you options.
Yeah.
And what people want in their life is options. They want their ability to choose. They want the ability to send their kids to private schools. They want their ability to have options to do certain things in their life. And without money, you cannot have options because you're bound into whoever's trying to control you by money.
Yep.
And that is one of the biggest things that people strive for but don't actually articulate and understand well, is it'll buy you options. And you'll hear that crap too about, well, I've never seen somebody unhappy on a jet ski. I'm like, have you ever seen them crash the shit? They're not happy then. And it's the same thing, right? But it's the options. That's the key. So yeah, money does buy happiness because of the options you so choose to use that money for.
Yeah, and I always say, because we're all, I suspect we're all, people of faith here and stuff from introduction that way. In the Christian community, they attack it like crazy.
Yes, they do.
And I'll say, wait. And see, that was a great explanation, beautiful explanation. I'm a little bit more sassy. You know what I'm saying? I'm more of a poker. You know what I'm saying? I just want to dig on people that way because I'm like, well, people say money bad, but I'm like, well, then you don't know where to shop. You know what I'm saying? And the flip side out, in the Christian community, I have to get them a little bit more because they'll throw some over spiritualized verse in there. And so what I'll do is I say, listen, if you don't think money brings happiness, that means you never made enough to give it away.
Exactly.
Because some of the greatest organizations I give to are wonderful Christian organizations that help children that don't have food or shelter or things like that way. And see, and bringing those things up, and you got something to say?
Well, I was just going to say, if we're going to go into the Christian community and we're going to dive into the
we will.
Bible a little deeper, the specific verse that Jesus talks about is, it's the love of money is the root of all evil.
Agree.
And it doesn't say money is the root of all evil. It says love of money is the root of all evil. And Jesus' point when he was talking about that is when we take money and we make it an idol, that's where we get ourselves jammed up. And if we open our hand, the money flows out of our hand to different opportunities to help people. But when we keep our hand closed and we keep the money in our hand, that's when those selfish, greedy traits come into play. And so I think it's a catchphrase, as you say it, that is very misrepresented.
It is.
in the Christian community.
Yep.
Right.
Now, that being said, let's build upon this then. So my statement I want to make, and I guys, I want you to go around, articulate what you believe on this. So Dana, Ross, I just...
Are we disagreeing or agreeing
Yeah.
first? And
Yeah,
then...
they-
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I apologize.
You're only going to say two
All
words.
good.
You're going to say I agree or I disagree, and that's it.
And
You're not going to
then-
explain right away.
Yes.
Okay.
Our wonderful co-host came up with these ideas because I'm like, you're right, because if they do, they can...
Because otherwise you start to sway.
I don't want you to
and-
counter your...
Yeah.
As an
Yes,
umpire, I'm very
D1
fond of
prefers
ground
to not
rules.
be the
Yeah.
first one talking.
That was
Yes,
perfect.
yes.
Thank you.
What's
Yes.
that?
Said D1 prefers not to be the first one talking. I like listening to other people.
Can't.
Tough.
No, but the one thing...
no.
The one thing that they brought up in one of our meetings, and it was a great point, and I never would have thought about this, the fact that we found out that when a person started, we learned this from our first show, that by the time let's say you started, that person over there may answer different and change their mind by the time you got around them because
Which
they've
is why
never
you
had deep
shouldn't start
discussions.
with D1.
Yeah,
then.
no.
D1 gets to go.
D1 takes notes and knows all the questions
So we're
beforehand.
okay, remember, every question we start with Dana, D1.
go.
Oh,
okay?
my
Because we
goodness.
got to put her in that situation.
We'll play the Jeopardy
D1's
music
bucking the
behind
show
it.
Christy
right
and
now.
I are having
Formulating your
lunch
response.
tomorrow to talk.
So as I laid out those general rules for feminine characteristics and masculine characteristics, now here's my statement. Remember, these are statements I believe to the core. And so, and it's always been, when you want to make an impact, you have to stand for something. I can respect people that stand for something I even totally disagree with, but at least you know where they're coming from. Okay. So let's go. So here's my statement, and then we're going to go around. I disagree. Then Dana, we're going to come back to you for the first explanation. So here we go. Feminine characteristics should not be considered when making decisions to govern our society. Let me repeat that again. Feminine characteristics should not be considered when making decisions to govern a society. So Dana, we're gonna start with you, and then I'll give you a little time. By the time we go around,
I'm not sure. I mean, my gut says that I agree. I mentioned that I'm a Christian, so yeah.
I agree. That's it.
I agree.
That's
Yep.
it. Okay,
Stop.
I'm going with I agree.
Let's read that question again.
Yes.
So go back to those feminine characteristics, and let me just say these again so you guys can get these in here. Feminine characteristics. Here we go. Sorry about that. Compassionate, nurturing, creative, patient, sensitive, multitasker, supportive, grateful, humble, all the other ones that way. And so let me go over the statement again. And I will go with characteristics if you need to again for the question. The feminine characteristics should not be considered when making decisions to govern a society.
I disagree.
I disagree.
I agree.
Damn.
I knew you would have a hard time with this one, but I know you'll be able to speak about it.
Yeah. I agree to a point.
All right, you got okay. Yep.
I know. That's so hard to do.
That was
Two words.
That was 4. That's right. Come on, you gotta give us.
Point.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, if it's all or nothing, I disagree.
Okay. Well, great. Now, what we're going to do is this: we're going to go around the room, and I want you to articulate the situation. But I'm going to give you guys just something in general, and we're going to take you for example because the first one to say I disagree. Okay. I just got a simple question for you. Do you believe in participation trophies?
No.
Okay. And the reason I ask that is as an umpire. So you have to make the calls of strikes and balls and call them out and things like this. Now, the reason why I'm going to set that up is that's all I'm going to ask. But then we're going to come back to the example, and we're going to use you for example on this. And just from because I suspect you saying you're an umpire, you take very good pride in what you do to be a great ump.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so we're gonna come back to this. So I want you to remember that example. So if I for some reason forget, co-host, remind me of that one. But Dana, what happens this is you said I agree. I want you to go around and explain and articulate what you can think about that way.
Okay, so again, I would say, as a Christian, I have my standard is the Bible. Like that's what I look at. So, and then as a nation, when I look at our standards, I see the Constitution as our standard. So when I think about like the people in the Bible, the people who started our nation, when I think about the majority of very successful, and again, we're talking about rules, not exceptions. Mm-hmm. When we talk about very successful businesses, you tend to see that those are held by masculine roles. And I don't believe that women don't have capabilities, but I think that men and women were purposely made different. And so you're going to overwhelmingly see the majority of men in those types of positions.
I feel like that was more of a disagreement than a...
No, that was 100% agreement.
No, she's agreeing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm going to use my wife for an example. Like she, as a teacher, she's had the misfortune of working under males that are less than capable of embracing their role. That being said, I think part of the problem is because males have really done a poor job of embracing leadership and taking the bull by the horns. And women get sick and tired of watching slack-jawed guys talk the talk and they can't back anything up. And so that creates a leadership vacuum, and somebody has to step in and take that. I mean...
So I got a question for you. So as she steps in and takes that role, that would mean she's even competitive against those guys. What kind of trait is that?
That's a masculine trait.
See, so...
But it's a masculine trait because the males are forfeiting that masculine trait in that particular instance.
Right.
I mean,
but that wasn't a feminine quality that she took over.
But I have a question. Is it really out of competition that she's stepping in, or is because of voice? Because if the man has abdicated his responsibility, she's stepping in due to his absence. So it's not competition.
I did.
She's just seeing a void.
Because here's what happens. Let's come back to this. But no, let's go back to this.
Yeah.
Because most people don't understand competition. Because competition, now this is by definition, it makes better quality, efficiency, consistency, initiative, collaboration, discipline, and problem solving that way. See, and that's why when you remove competition, so as an ump, if you like to see a better competitive team come in there and they work harder, it makes them, like I said, makes them quality, efficient. And see, but that, once again, is the competitive thing. So she had to take on that because you said, and if you think of it this way, a male dropped the boat on a masculine trait, and now a female stepped in. But what is still the dominant trait that dominates society? Do you follow me on that?
Yes.
And see, that's why I talk about where we're going. See, and this is where, and the reason why is this. Because is it a competitive spirit that gives participation trophies, or is it a nurturing, compassionate one that does?
Nurturing, compassionate one.
Which is what's more, what kind of characteristic?
Feminine.
Oh, no doubt.
And see, so that's why when I look and go, so what we do is see, we have to still look at, and the reason why I bring that up is because, once again, characteristics are needed for both things, but we're not talking about a home. We're talking about society. And if we look at what your wife did, she stepped in a role that she shouldn't even have had to step into, because you actually explained it, incompetent, not a competent. Because what's the difference between arrogance and confidence? Competence. Because competent people actually get the job done. But go on.
Well, I would say, like, if you use the example in Washington right now, I mean,
Incompetent.
Without, and this might be getting off in the weeds a little bit, but let's take our esteemed President Joe right now, and let's step back for a moment and let's ask yourself, if he was the only guy available to run my company, like if you were looking for a guy to run your company, based on everything that you've seen, would that be a viable choice, do you think, that you would want to use? And that's where, and I'm a rabbit hole guy. I'm gonna have confession right now and say that, but that's where, like, politics gets all muddied up, because you look at the people that are supposedly in charge, and they don't demonstrate strong masculine characteristics of people that you would expect to be in charge. So that's why, me personally, I don't take politics seriously. I take it as more entertainment, because you look at, we got guys, most of those guys should be playing shuffleboard in a nursing home right now, and they're supposedly in charge of making important decisions that are going to impact us 7 sitting here at this table and people, far and away from us. And that's a problem in society in general. And if we go back to what you were saying about the Bible, like, some of the best leaders in the Bible were strong, masculine men that had to make tough choices that weren't popular, but they made the tough choices, and they got, Israel through whatever thing that they got themselves jammed up with. And so,
let's go back to this. So after everything you just said,
yep,
which I actually loved everything you just said. So I'm going to ask you the question again. Or I'm going to ask the statement again. Because everything you just talked about was the characteristics that made a good society. You made my point all over again. Because I say feminine characteristics should not be considered when making decisions to govern society, because if we go to the politicians, which I want everybody to love politics. Politics is just how your community runs. Don't confuse it with politicians and the bad choices they make. And if you look at this, does anybody know who, if you look at and of course you're making fun of Joe Biden, so let's just run with this. I'll make an assumption that you don't like him. Okay? And as far as his policies, not as an individual, just as far as policies.
Well, I don't really, if we're going to put all the cards on the table, I don't care for the other side either. I think but it's a my dad. What happens with politics is it turns into a my dad's better than your dad.
It's a dick swinging competition.
Yeah, and the issue that I have is, if it's a my dad's better than your dad, what people are missing is, we got one dad over here that's, and I'm gonna go with extreme examples, so just bear with me. But we got one dad over here that's basically molesting children, and we got another dad over here who's basically a womanizer and a drunk. And as a society, we've settled for the whole, we got to pick the lesser of two evils. And that's what we're missing, is we got to come to the realization that both dads suck. and we've got to approach it from that perspective. I feel.
Yep. Like those comments. Skip what you got, and then we're going to go to
I
Ross.
think as a society, I just want to hit on this, is you hit on it, and you actually hit on the exceptions. And as a society, we have a tendency to polarize towards exceptions instead of the norm of what commonality is.
Great comment.
And we see it all the time in healthcare nonstop, is people will look at commonality and think it's normal when really it's not. But in the other side of it is we'll be attracted to uncommon things. So we see a kid with a fever and he's got neck pain. Immediately a parent will go to Google and figure out it's meningitis when it's extremely rare for that to happen. But they'll freak out about it, and they'll basically lose sleep over it, looking at the exception to the rule, not the commonality of what's going on. And in politics aside, people are attracted to exceptions to the rule because that's what basically moves the needle. So if you look at it, yeah, both men in that situation are exceptions to the rule. And yes, as a society, you're going to polarize from one side or the other. But when you look down the middle of it, people have very, very common viewpoints that never gets expressed upon, because the minute you express upon this, and it really irks me, is that if you express on what the commonalities are of what society actually wants, the polarizing side will immediately get mad because it offends them, when really it shouldn't offend them. They should understand that societal norms dictate actual normal commonality. And I think that's where people get clouded in the judgment, because you'll hear the comment come in, well, couldn't we have found somebody better to put up? Yeah, they're out everywhere, but they're the ones that are running society. They're working jobs. They're raising families. They're in their 30s, 40s, and 50s trying to put food on the table and help their families out, not run the damn country. But we have to find the right people to put in place that kind of take on the language of the whole. Does that make sense? You've hit perfectly on it.
Yep. All right, Ross.
Read the statement again.
Feminine characteristics should not be considered when making decisions to govern a society.
This is a good one. I know I agree with a lot of the things that are being said, but the reason why I disagree is that I think when we start looking at masculine and feminine traits influencing society, I think that the feminine traits are very necessary, because a huge part of our society is our younger generations, are our children. And some of those amazing qualities should be influencing some of the aspects of our society, okay, when it comes to education in particular. Sure, we might say, well, let's put in the black and white rules and the structure and the stipulations, have a masculine traits, put that all in play, but to enforce them and to actually, I mean, we just talked about some of the things even leading up into this, teachers, right? But I think that some of those feminine qualities in regards to the societal influence to our children are very influential and should be at the table and helping govern. Absolutely.
Everybody should get the vaccine because we're worried about our people's children. See, when we look at it, it's a great polarizing topic where all you have to do is use the children thing to push society in a way of this. Like, go, hey, listen, if we could just stop one child from dying, so everybody should wear a mask. One child from dying, so we should get a vaccine this way. See, the idea is this. Those are still, from those kind of comments and polarizing and getting people to take action, those are still actually feminine arguments. Because I'm sitting there going, well, here's what happens. This, if we look at anything in school, I can honestly say, let's look at this. Would you consider, and let's go back to this. Would you consider Joe more on how he talks, more of a feminine quality or a masculine quality, just in general?
I would say
He's feminine.
I would
He
say
has a
feminine.
coherent
Definitely.
sentence.
Yes, and the reason why is this. Now,
Well, that's what I was going to say is I
Yeah.
don't get a lot of coherent sentences to be
Yeah,
To be able to
you're right.
formulate
No, but
an
if you think this way,
opinion, first of all.
and you think this way, that's why if you ever notice, and let's go Trump, he'd be a little bit more unmasked. I'd forget the child molesting, and actually remember Trump's against drinking because you can't be part of family heritage if you drink. His brother died from alcoholism. Just to clear that. Okay, there's misconception.
Factoid.
But the idea is this. What's that?
Said it's a nice factoid.
Yes, it's fact. I know a lot of trivia. But anyways, but if you think of it this way, is if you think about the majority of people and look at voting statistics, you know, who votes more for Democrats, men or women?
Women.
Women by far, because why? Feminine speaking. I will take care of you. I'm compassionate. I'm nurturing. I care. And it's the easiest way, and that's why women are much more easily manipulated than men ever are. See, so if it enters society, because here's what happens this. Here's a question for him. I mean it sincerely. And of course I use exaggerated examples, but I actually mean them too. And so, Skip, you have a business, and I've known you for a long time. I would say you're a very good businessman. You got a heart of gold. But let's say you and Julie could not pay your bills and take care of your business because someone said, Skip, if you don't shut your business down and you don't wear a mask, my grandma could die. I know you love Jesus with all your heart, just like I do, and stuff like that. Skip, I mean it sincerely. I mean it's totally sincere. You can't feed your family. You can't help your business. You give a fuck about somebody else's grandma.
No.
Thank you. And that's my point. Because you know why? There's a famous statement that I didn't realize was going to go crazy over net when I said this. See, when it comes to this, with my family, I'm a communist. I want to take care of them. I want to be the person they depend on. With my friends, I'm a liberal. Let's do it together. With my community, I'm a conservative. You have your own responsibilities. And with the world, I'm libertarian. You know why? Your world doesn't dictate mine. Do you understand? And so that's why when we look at these things, it's so easy to, if we feminize any education. Hey, wouldn't you say that the Democrats and feminization runs the teachers union? Oh, it's about the children. Okay, what about children? They're horribly educated. Why don't we get competition and masculine traits back into schools and stuff like that? Because you know what it does? Now you get Dana. Like I said, for people who don't know this, Dana was my manager at one time. And then as she developed, our Christian school came recruit her to actually run that and be a big part of it that way.
I helped.
It helped, yes. You're part. Start with that. But I want you to think of it this way: is if you being a teacher, by your education, everything like that, and looking at education today, would you consider it to be good or bad?
Which education are you referring
Public.
to? Public? Bad.
Which party runs that basically, and what they vote for, and what the unions give money to every single year? What party?
The Democratic Party.
And what is the one that says all of a sudden that we're going to take care of all your needs? What party says that the most?
The Democratic Party.
And it sounds more like a woman and a mom. And see, so how does that work? So then explain to me, guys, how does that work in society?
But but it's all by design. The design of public school is to dumb everybody down to the lowest common denominator
Yep.
and make them followers and make sheep out of them.
But
It's not, the goal is not to educate people, because right now, let's take Common Core math, for instance. We're trying to tell people now that 2 + 2 = 5.
Yeah.
Education is not the goal of public school. It's indoctrination.
Correct.
It's an agenda that people are
Absolutely.
trying to move forward, and it's a vehicle to move agendas through the system. And if you can start the indoctrination process, I mean, the idea that you can take a kindergartner and you can breach the subject with them about whether they think they're a dude or a
Or
girl
not.
Right.
is absolutely ridiculous
Absurd.
to me. But when that's part of your agenda, you have no qualms about doing that.
Now,
You
Ross,
just go after it.
We're gonna go to you and then we'll go to Dana.
Okay, but so to that right there, if we can all agree that that is an agenda that is being not just suggested, but it's being rammed down our throats, is that more masculine or feminine?
as far as
In its approach, in its delivery, and in its weaponization against who
it's all
we are.
it's all feminine, because you know why? Because
but-
feminine cares about the
Emotional.
minorities
I don't
than
know
it
if
does
it
there.
is.
Well, sure it is, because it sits there and goes, you know,
This
something.
is not
these
I don't
people-
think it's a
these
gender-specific
people-
issue, though.
No, but the trait is this: you're telling me you don't care about transgender people and gay people and things like that. So we need to teach these people this is the way it is and stuff.
The method is
include
the
everybody.
method.
The
The method is
method
masculine.
absolutely is
The
feminine.
implementation is feminine.
Right.
I think
Absolutely.
patient was on the list twice. And I don't
Yes.
think a patient person rams things down people's throats, right?
Yep.
So that's to my point, and I haven't like expanded on it, but that would be exactly a perfect point to say if we don't have a balance of the energies. I do feel like it would either go like prison level for children in school, or we're bouncing around with the Teletubbies. I mean,
Oh, no doubt.
right? There needs to be a balance.
Love it.
I love
Yep,
that.
we
was
need to find
fantastic.
our
That was
grounding.
fantastic.
And if there is
Right.
no balance, then we see these extremes come out, right? And I think when we talk about the public education system, there are so many beautiful people that work in the public school system that do so much and try to work with the masculine agendas that are coming down. And we see all these teachers leaving, especially the young ones, because they're coming in and they're like, I can't make a difference.
Yep. So I got a
It's
question
too
for you.
black and white.
So I got a question for you on that statement. your kids go to public school?
They do.
Okay. Do you want how many shitty teachers do you want compared to the great teachers?
I'm sorry, how many what to
How
the
many shitty teachers do you want compared to the great teachers? Because you gotta have a balance.
Okay, and if we're talking about a balance, I would say they're ones that had shitty days, but I found out their husband died a few months prior. So I had to bring it forward in masculine energy, myself as a single mom,
Yep.
bring it forward to talk about it with saying, I really understand why this is happening, but she's not supported in her work right now. And she's taking it out on my kid, right? I think we've all been there or thought maybe we've been there before. We just don't know. Like I saw it happen. And it was the first time my child went to a private school.
So it's great to deflect the question. Go back to my question. How many shitty teachers do you want in your school?
I don't want any.
That's my
and
point.
that's why I
so
want
the
them to
so the
feel-
commonality of balance sounds really good. Skip, you own a bunch of business like me. How many shitty employees do you want? You should have balance. That's my point. See, that's the thing. See, and that's one thing where I talk about this way. If you're going to govern society, what happens is this. And you look at those feminine traits, you're always going to come back to something that seems emotionally appealing. That's why women are so easy to manipulate. Because the idea is this: moving forward, if we're going to put the best, I would for your child in every public education or any business that way. Here, watch this. If you have a doctor that works for you that way, do you want a balance of crappy doctors, good doctors, and when those patients come in, who do you decide to see? See, that's the thing. It's like we always want the best when it comes to us, but then when it comes to somebody else that might not get it, we're okay with it. I'm not okay with our society not putting out the best, because here's what happens: this. If we do, then we always run towards protecting the weak, and protecting the weak is, hey, guess what? It's really funny. I know it sounds interesting. I trained on this today with my team. Do you understand? I mean this sincerely. The farther away, here we go. The farther away you're removed from somebody, the less your femininity you express towards them.
Right.
Because you don't give a crap anymore. You're not compassionate anymore. Watch this. If you're all compassionate and we're all Christian, why don't we just put all of our money over to Africa? The kids are going to die of starvation and things like that. And see, that's why I want people to have the honest conversations, like going, no, because then we're going to hold people to a higher standard and we're going to get the best teachers. So the concept of balance sounds wonderful. It's all emotional, but logical in society, it makes zero sense when you want something that's for you. I want the best for your teachers to be the best that way. And if we have those expectations of it that way, we get a better society. Because balance and everything has allowed us to actually equate to having mediocrity. What do you got?
My turn? Oh,
Okay.
yay. Okay, yeah, let's have some fun. Okay, read the statement again.
Okay.
Please.
Here we go. Feminine characteristics should not be considered when making decisions to govern a society.
Okay.
And you said?
Oh, I said I agree.
Okay.
So even as a woman, I can agree with that. So, okay, how do I want to say this? So I think that, okay, first of all, there are smart women out there, okay? I'm not saying that there aren't. Don't come at me in the comments for anything like that. However, well, they will. It's fine. I can take it. Anyway, so there are smart women out there. But the thing is say women take over all the companies and they take over all of government and they start making all the decisions to run our country, we'll be annihilated in 30 seconds. That's all the longer that it would take, and that's just the truth. Because women make decisions based on emotions, like we talked about. And the thing is I talk to people all the time, and I think there's value in making decisions based on your intuition or like maybe how you feel and things like that. But that's not the way that we govern society. Society needs to be governed in a masculine way and not in a feminine way, because it doesn't work like that. Think about how men and women even just make decisions themselves. If you look at how men make decisions, they make them with logic and they tend to make quick decisions. Now, let's flip over to women. And first of all, after we make a decision, how many times are we going to change our mind? And how many stories are we going to tell before we even get to our point, right? So like if women are governing this, every week we would be dealing with something like, I don't know, like, oh yeah, I know I wanted to bomb China last week, but I had my period and I just was mad about it, and I'm sorry, I take it back, we shouldn't do it, just call it off, right? That's just like how it would end up going if women were just I'm exaggerating, but I like humor.
Well,
here's the thing, though. Okay, women should be involved in a decision-making process. Their input is valuable. Men should take that, or the masculine energy should take that into consideration, right? But ultimately, we will do better if masculine qualities are what govern society.
Skip, you said I disagree, but so let's.
No, I agree.
I agree, but
I
yeah.
agree, but there's a couple things that come out of this. Number one, we have to understand and look at how society is run from a family perspective. And I want you to just play with me for a minute. Most of you got your self-worth from who in your family? Most males got their self-worth from their mom. Most females got their self-worth from their dad. When it comes to helping my daughter being raised in a society, I'm going to give her as much self-worth as I possibly can, but it's going to come from a place of love and nurturing and how I talk to her. My son, I'm going to be very black and white. And the love and nurturing is going to come from his mom. Because I want him to see how I manage myself when I'm with men and how we relate to one another. Because boys need to see men doing things with men. Yep. Girls need to see women doing things with women, and what the societal norms dictate on that. And people will push back on that, but it's important because when we look at how men are now, most men are raised by their moms, but they're raised in a situation where divorce is extremely high. So let's look at the African American population. If we look at a very high divorce rate there, most males in the African American population have a lot of self-worth, tons of self-worth, because they're raised by their mama and their big mama. They're raised by their grandmothers. Women, we will see that they will not have as much self-worth because they're raised by their mom and they're raised by their grandmother. It's the same thing when we're looking at governing a society. When we take and demasculinize males and have them, now there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a very emotional person. I'm a wet person. I'm not a dry person. I cry a lot. I'm emotional with my patients. That's what makes me resonate with so many females that I take care of, okay? But when it comes to leading, I take a very different direct route because I know that conversations need to happen, but very to-the-point conversations have to happen. When emotions get involved, that's fine. We can see both sides of the issue with emotions, but at the end of the day, the black and white decision is actually what gets the job done. And I'm not saying that females can't run companies, but you will see more masculine traded females will run a company. But you will find that the ones that are masculine traded had an extremely supportive father that instilled in them the belief system to be very straightforward, but also do it from an aspect of love and consideration. That's how I see society. So if we were to ever see a female president in the United States, which I hope at some point does happen, she will be very masculine driven in her traits. Hence why you will see a lot of the Supreme Court justices that are put into positions that you've seen in the last couple of years. The female that President Trump instilled, she has a lot of masculine traits. She's very black and white in how she decides and governs and sticks to the Constitution. But she also has a roadmap. So I feel that the masculine traits have to be there to govern and run a society. They absolutely have to. The black and white decision has to be made. You shoot somebody, you should go to jail. It shouldn't be how you're feeling that day. It shouldn't be how the person that arrests you that day figures or not, well, I'm having a bad day. You're probably having a bad day. Yeah, I get your wife pissed you off, so I understand why you put a bullet in her head. Yeah. But you're cool. Well, just don't do it tomorrow. Yeah. Versus,
so are we erasing gender-specific adherence to who gets to portray the masculine and influence society, or who gets to not step into their because you're pro I agree that women shouldn't influence or
no
feminine
traits.
That's why
not women.
That's what I didn't say men or women.
That's why I came back to that. So feminine traits coming into governing a society to make black and white decisions to make things happen.
It's a more masculine trait.
It's a more masculine trait to be very straightforward. Hunter-gatherer societies is the same way. Women in a hunter-gatherer society where they weren't out hunting. Very few were. Some were. And you see it across history.
Yes.
Some women were fighting on the field of battle. Even now, women do that. But the traits are more masculine versus feminine, and feminine kept them alive.
You're also talking about the exceptions, not the rule.
Exactly.
And if you ask the majority of people, now let's go back to this. If you ask the majority of women, and yes, there's the exception, not the rule, and we always talk about the exceptions, is you ask the majority of women, if I gave you $10 million and you could stay home, what do most women say?
I want to stay home.
Yes.
I want to stay home. Because now when you take away the stress for them to live in society, and now they can feed their family, do stuff, they're going to go back to those characteristics that they were born with. You see? Now, once again, that's why I had to change. And the reason why I changed it is because I didn't want to be misconstrued. Because before, our question was women instead of feminine characteristics governing. See, that's why a lot of people get defensive right away because they're, well, my wife. Okay, let's pull out your wife characteristics. You're just talking masculine characteristics if they succeed in society. And see, I think we have to get away. I don't care if there's ever a female president. If it's a male or a female, I want them to have masculine characteristics. Otherwise, guess what happens? You're going to, here's what happens. Because you think of it this way. Think about any government program. Who are you appealing to? Masculine or feminine traits to get it passed through?
Feminine.
By far. Take care of grandma. I don't have to take care. Why would... I'm going to ask everyone, you guys, and see, that's why I talk about this. Give me any government program. I'm cool with it if you do it yourself. You want to help somebody, take your own money. Well, I don't want to do that there, because the farther they get away from your family, the less that you care. I know it's really funny. There's somebody maybe that I know that their mom died today, and I'm just going to be black and white about it. I don't care. I could be a little sympathetic for you, but it's not going to change my day, because the farther away you get from people, the less you care about any tragedy that comes in their life. That's why I even said this way. But if I look at my family, if they're suffering, I want to take care of them. That's a communist kind of idea. Depend on me. I will take care of you. Your world will be better if I run it. You saying?
Have you guys ever heard of Dunbar's number? It's 150, but what this is based on, I think it's 142
I've never
actually.
heard of it,
But it's based on this idea of, it's kind of like what you're talking about, how like with the further you get away, you don't care about people anymore.
Right.
And there have been studies done where they look at different sizes of different tribes, and they found that the perfect tribe size is right around 150. I think they narrowed it down to 142. Because at that size, you have enough people to be in community and have everything that you need, and everybody takes care of each other, but it's also small enough that you know everybody, and when you know people, you don't wrong them. And we are now way past living in communities of 142 people where we don't care anymore. Dunbar's number.
Well, Dana, let me use this. And Nicolette, I don't know you that well, but get to know you. You seem very compassionate, very sweet, very feminine that way. But here's what happens. Let's take about those people that are farther away from you. If your husbands can't support the family because they're going to use emotional arguments, which are all feminine, to go carrying it. Because we're looking at a second wave coming, not really healthcare wise, but they're going to try to mask people, tell people shut down, distance, stuff of this, and you think this way, and they're going to use, you need to care about this person. I mean this sincerely. If your husband can't help support your 3 kids, or Clint can't help support the kids, do you really give a crap? And I know you both women are caring women, but do you really give a crap about those people?
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
And see, that's my point. So why can't we have discussions like that? Because the politician gets up and says, well, this person's going to suffer. I don't give a shit. And neither do you. No matter how much you love Jesus. Do you understand? Because that's one thing we do. We always bend on the aspect of care, which is by nature. I get it. It's compassion, it's nurturing. All those feminine characteristics can do it. Now, let's flip it around, because you guys have been talking about this.
Did we get through all the?
Yeah, we
got Nicolette. There you go.
Nicolette.
I kind of jumped ahead of everyone.
I was going to her. I was
I'm
going to her. I just
sorry.
wanted to, but we'll come back to that.
I was just feeling it. I kind of jumped on before.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
I just want to say that maybe it is true. The more that you move around the circle and talk, the more you're seeing. But I just want to I do want to say from the beginning, I really viewed this as more or less, we should not be considering that energy as something that would be a good consult in our politics. I do feel like women have a valid place, and that emotion and energy in general should be considered. That's more or less.
Well, and like you said, there's a difference between, women and feminine. There's a difference between,
There is.
we should
Exactly.
maybe identify
it's
too.
the
There's a
qualities.
difference.
It's not.
There's a difference between the masculine and feminine, and also gender roles, because the
Correct.
masculine and feminine are your characteristics. Your gender roles are how you behave.
Yeah. Now, let me give you an example. So this is where, if I take one of the feminine characteristics, it's really funny. And the reason why, if I say, Ross runs my real estate, and so that the one reason why he does is he's extremely creative, which would be by nature be something a little bit more feminine quality that way.
Well,
So
to be honest, running your real estate has nothing to do really with.
no, but there's still a building, there's still things like that, and that seems like more of a.
Well, it comes down,
Aesthetics.
when women want to talk about what colors do we put in, what colors for carpets, what colors should the wall. That's where you get the women. Well, it should be this, it should be this, and I'm like, no, just pick a color. This isn't your home.
Yeah.
That's what you came to me with, and I was like, please.
And that's what I want to run on though. Now think about this. Now I was said it. Now I will say this. Now let's flip it around, which wasn't a part of the show, but you guys got me going on this. So let's do this.
Good.
Okay. Masculine characteristic should not be considered when making decisions to govern the home. Because now let me explain on there a little bit. Because here's what happens. Even person having a daughter, what makes a better mother? Nurturing, compassionate, things like this. It's going to be, I'm not saying lead the home. I'm saying just setting up a home. Setting up a home because, let me ask you a question, Skip. I'm referencing you because I know you're a businessman. Would you agree that competition, there's a little bit of war, there's a little bit of fight out there when you're in business?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you go out and dominate today, and you're in war and fight. And just us being chiropractors, we go against the grain every single day.
Yep.
It's war out there. Do you want to go home to war?
No.
You want to go home to what?
Love and peace.
Can that really come from masculine? No
No.
protection. Thank you. It's sorry. I don't want to get home and compete with people at home. You know what I'm saying? I want some compassion, nurturing, things like that. And I said, it's kind of different, and that's why, and we look at it going, those feminine characteristics actually make a home.
Well,
I think it's a balance, though.
It is.
Like you got to be. I mean, Carrie, she's my ride or die girl, and her and I tell people all the time. Sometimes we fight hard, but we love harder because we get each other, And there's things that she adds to the home that she does really well at, and there's stuff that I feel like I add to the home.
Okay, now watch. Let me know. So give me what you add to the home.
I think. Well, first, I'm the majority breadwinner.
Yeah, but that
Masculine or
that's
feminine?
That's masculine.
That's right. But
Right.
but here's happens this. You provide, but see, protection and providing is a male characteristic for society and the home, but it doesn't develop a home. I'm talking about creating home. See, when everybody gives me,
That's a fair argument.
when everybody gives me things, they want to act like, for example, like I said, no joke, if you're a single dad, you have to be both.
both sides.
If you're a single mom, you had to you even said this to your school when you said it. You had to go in and act what? Feminine to that teacher?
Oh no, the
Thank
principal
you.
got my masculine.
That's my point. And here's what I'm trying to do with everybody. If we can realize that there is a difference, and it's okay to say that the home is different than work. You see, and I think it's much easier for a married man to come home to a home than it is for a woman that works and goes home. Because you have to go to the world and compete, and I don't care what people say. Society is still built by a man. The thinking still ran. If you want to survive it, you better have those male characteristics, masculine characteristics. Because here's what happens. Where do you work, Nicolette?
I work at a BPO,
Okay.
primarily in the entertainment industry.
So now let me ask you a question. I know you're going to be retiring soon that way and stuff. In a week or two, you said?
Yeah, basically this
Yeah.
week. Yeah.
Okay. That's fantastic. But here's what happens this. Is there anybody out there that would love to take your job and take the money and stuff like that when you're working full time?
Yeah, and I'm seeking them out and
Yes.
would love to train them.
But let's say you didn't have
What
that
is your
opportunity.
email
That is awesome.
address?
But here's the point. But if you didn't have that opportunity to do that, you would have to compete for that. I want my daughters or anything to go, listen, you know what, society, anything you want, it's competitive. Do you understand, Skip? Your beautiful wife, you're not the first person I thought about dating her.
Nope.
Everything's a competition. And because you know why? Go back to quality, efficiency, everything that comes along, the good things done that way. And that's why, once again, when you get home, it's like, there's those characteristics come there. And then what I want people to do is, it doesn't mean that you can't bring a creative aspect to your house. But we still need to define what they are, because when you try to now take that, what makes a home does not make society. Because you know why? It's two different worlds. And we need those two different things. And if I come home, I can still be myself, but women have to go into that aspect of, see, I'm a male, I want to stay in my male characteristics, When I get home, I want the feminine characteristics to take over, so I have peace. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, if a woman goes out to do really good job and they can do amazing things, I'm not saying women can't dominate in society, but they can't dominate society from their characteristics. They have to become, like you talked about, masculine. But when they go home, let me see a question. Are men attracted? Remember,
In general.
rules, not the exception. Are men attracted and want to sleep with a woman that has masculine characteristics?
Only if he's feminine,
Only if he's feminine.
because polarity.
But that's the point. So that's why I tell
Exception.
you want to come home and you want to involve yourself in those feminine characteristics, and it does. Even for a young boy or a young lady, it does actually make a better home. So to your point,
Well, I was going to say too, though, like we've evolved quite a bit as a society from the Leave It to Beaver era, where Ward went off and worked all day and came home, and June had the house spick and span, clean. You know, Wally and the Beav, they were taken care of. Mm-hmm. Now, June has to go out, and she's got to go compete in a dog-eat-dog world. Yep. Then she comes home after the world's kicked her hind end all over the place. Now she has to flip that switch, and all of a sudden now she has to she has to be the mom.
She
And
still has to wear heels everywhere she goes.
right. And I would argue that is also by design
to destroy,
Which you don't
to
do.
destroy the home.
100%
You take
100%.
inflation, you jack it through the
100%.
roof.
Mm-hmm.
Now that forces the woman out of the home into the workforce.
100%.
That takes the nurturing, family developing characteristics, the feminine characteristics that we're talking about, more out of the equation. And now we get back to what the end game is of, and that's where this is a really interesting topic, but when I have these discussions with people, I always try to step back and take the 10,000 foot view of what is the end game, because I think everybody here would argue that in a lot of ways, the June Cleaver back in the 60s was a probably more efficient way to run the house. And I believe Mama was probably a lot happier, than she is now. Now, are there some successful women that can go out and kick tail in the workforce and get after it and still come home? But if we're going to have the whole exception discussion, I would argue that that's probably the exception.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Not the rule.
Skip, what you got?
I think, one, I would really love to hear your viewpoint on this, Dana. But I also feel that all of this is designed to create government dependence.
I love that, Skip.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because
100%.
Love that.
when you and I work in a world where we see single employment households all the time.
Yep.
Most of them are on government assistance. And the reason why is because it's become so damn expensive to take care of a family. So what's happened is that in multi-children households, more than two, I would say that's defined as more than two. When we have 3, 4, 5, 6 children households, it becomes a complete wash for that child to go to daycare so mom can work. Therefore, mom stays home, dad goes to work, and they fall below a poverty line. Therefore, the government steps in and says, don't worry, we'll take care of you, which is a feminine side, which is a feminine trait.
100%.
Don't worry, we have you. But what they don't tell you is that on the opposite side of that is a dominant trait. It'll say, I'm going to control you. I'm not going to let you do anything. If you choose not to do this, follow X, Y, and Z, I'm going to just take away everything. Right. And that's where I draw the line, and I'm like, this isn't right. And when we look at this from a societal norm where we have a dual income household where both mom and dad work, you are 100% correct. Where mom's going to go and dominate in her male role the whole day. So what I mean by that is male characteristic role.
Yes.
I'm gonna do the same thing, but here's the thing. I'm in a slightly different role in my household because I do a lot of care providing during my day. And then I come home and I'm gonna make more decisions. Julie, on the other hand, makes a lot of decisions during the day. Mm-hmm. She's not in the caretaker role as much. She comes home and I'm going to do what I can to make decisions at home and let her take over and go to the different side of things. But again, dependence is the key. and destroying the home as we know it is what it ultimately is trying to become, and have everybody in their feelings, which isn't a bad thing. But we also need to understand that there's a very black and white stark decision making going on. And in the higher ups, they're doing it all the time. This is just how they're keeping everybody under their thumb. Because when you stand up and push back, they'll play on societal norms to make you feel bad. They'll play on societal norms to let you know that, hey, you're going to do this to grandma. Or I had the same thing happen at my church where they weren't allowing anybody in during COVID. So we had to do all this stuff online. And I said, I don't like this. And I had to find a new church that wasn't making us masks. But my pastor came back to me and Skip, don't you care about the meek? And I said, well, let's define meek.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because meek does not mean weak or invalid or can't move. Actually, they're the shut-in. They should be at home. I should be able to come to church because I'm healthy. I should be able to be around everybody that's healthy, that has an immune system that can function. The ones that can't should be at home, where then you can go and take care of them on a separate time. And there's a different way there. I think you guys can see my point to that. And I'm in the mood. If somebody wants to disagree, I'm fine with that. But I see it all the time. And in this day and age, it's about control.
No. Wonderful said. Now,
Dana
I want
said
to hear
this last week, though, and because I don't know if
You
it
did
was-
your homework?
I did my
Okay.
homework, and you
Nice.
brought it up. You talked about social conditioning, and that's what this
Everything.
all is. Like, I don't know if this second wave is actually going to happen or not, or if it's a figment of people's imagination. I didn't participate in the last round, so I don't plan to participate in this round.
It's a play on people's PTSD.
right.
Yeah.
And if I
Right.
can look at you as a soldier, and I know you have PTSD, and I deal with a lot of soldiers, and I can look at you and say, hey, you're going back to war. And unless you're all in, your PTSD will kick in, and you're like, I'm not going back because of everything that you saw happen. It's the same thing that happens when I have somebody that has extremely bad low back pain, or I have a kid that has colic that comes in and the kid cries in the waiting room, and a mom who had a prior kid with colic, all of a sudden I see them just get worried and shaken because they remember the sleepless nights. They remember what happened in their family. They remember the split they almost happened with their husband because of that post-traumatic. So all that they're doing, they are directly playing on that, and they're getting everybody to cower and worry right now.
But think of it this way. See, I don't have PTSD over it. I'm ready for war all over again. Let's go.
See, and that's the difference.
That's the difference. And
Yes.
See, and then we need, but see, it's funny because society will still look at me because I'm the exception, not the rule, and look at me like I'm bad.
Yeah,
Instead-
you're the dick,
instead of going-
and you're not.
Right.
Yeah. Well, no, because they don't realize I'm fighting for them.
Yeah.
So let's
Right.
go. Let's go back to our three lovely ladies here and stuff of that because I want that. Because, like I said, I know we have three feminine ladies here, so I want to get the perspective on what we just discussed. Dana, what you got for us on that?
I look at whenever you're looking at a society in terms of when things go wrong. I just I try to look at it from the Christian aspect. The devil's a liar. So what is he going to try and do? He's going to try and create something that sort of looks like it's right, but it's not. He's a deceiver. He's a counterfeit. So when the government does those types of things, they're trying to be savior, and that's not their role. They're not supposed to be the savior of us. They're supposed to govern and look out for our best interests, but they're not our saviors. So I guess that's how I look at it when I see that kind of stuff.
Love it. Nicolette.
I believe the question was masculine energy in the home, right? Are we still kind of responding to that one? Because I just have to say, like,
We are officially in the weeds.
Just trying to dive in here. I mean, I feel like we're all saying the same thing, whether we agree or disagree. It's like the abuse of whatever traits we're speaking of is when we see these failures happen. So when I say masculine energy should never be in the home, I appreciate my husband's masculine energy so much after being a single mom for so long. So when it comes to having a structure of guidance and how you interact with your children with those energies, I do depend on them to come home sometimes and have that. So I would not ever want to be in a place where it's gone ever again. But that's because it's not abused, right? And it's the feminine traits are appreciated in one another. And that's kind of where I say, like, it's hard to say one or the other, but I appreciate the masculine energy.
So I analyze this all the time, and to give you an example to clear up some things on us too. So I have a huge company. I employ more women than I employ men. And I'll tell people this. I'll say, listen, they say, well, does your company run 100% masculine? That's not true, because it can't be. Okay, the dominating aspect of the company is still 80% masculine, but some of the coolest features we have as far as culture are feminine things.
Culture.
They really are. There's a cultural aspect that way. And when you look at home, it's kind of the same way, but there will be a little bit more dominant, because so this, we all know this. If we go to war and we go to battle as men, we kind of want to be nurtured when we get home a little bit, because that mom role. We do. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, because we went to war. I need a sandwich. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to make my own damn sandwich. You know what I'm saying? And I understand that, and this is where I think is really difficult, because, like you said, see, I'm very happy I met you. I've known and respect that man for a long time. But I'm really happy I met you, because you know why? Because I truly believe, like you do, I believe that we've created two working people within a family, because now what happens this. Because, ladies, I'm empathetic. I'm going to sound a little bit more feminine this way. I am so compassionate for you, ladies, that you go out and have to go work and then transition that mental. And I try to tell women, I don't want you stressed out. It will make you sick. And people think I'm a misogynist. I'm like, no, I'm a provider and protector. I want to protect you from being so stressed out, because it make you sick. But then on top of this way, if we can keep moms especially busy, then guess what happens? Then the school, the government, other people can have influence over your children. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And see, that's why
Technology.
you said something last
Yeah.
week. It's called a television.
Oh yeah,
because it tells their vision.
for a reason.
But see, I think that happens. This that was a great one.
Whatever's
That was really
happening
good.
in the morning, that's what's going to be going on at night, because humans
Yep.
just mimic what they see on TV.
Yeah.
Well, it's called programming for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that too.
reason.
So Dana,
Exactly.
we got the viewpoints. What you got?
Well, when it comes to masculine and feminine, I mean, I'm always looking for polarity in the sexes, because I think that that's how not only in intimate relationships in the home, but also society runs and thrives really well when we have that polarity. I mean, 80% of the time you're going to have the masculine man and you're going to have the feminine woman. And then 10% of the time you're going to have the feminine man and the masculine woman. And then 10% of the time you're going to have balance, right? Where both people are a little, they're just balanced, quite frankly. But I think what we just have to be careful of, and this is largely in the home, I guess, what we just have to be careful of is if women start to take on more masculine characteristics, if they can't shut that off at the end of the day, maybe because they were at work and they're coming home and they're being masculine at work, it sometimes can cause the man to step back from his masculine, and we don't want that happening, because then she just takes over more, and then we run into the danger of her trusting her own masculine more than she trusts his, and that's where even more of this depolarization happens, and then that's how you lose your passion and lose your intimacy in relationships.
Well, you get hatred, you get
get that
spitefulness,
too.
you get a lot of
Resentfulness.
things.
Resentful, yeah.
Resentfulness.
And
It's
you also
really
see
what it
this,
comes down
and
to.
I've seen this a lot now also to marriages, because you talk about that happening. That also happens if a pastor or a church becomes the dominant leader in that man's household when he really is.
Yes, and that I want to comment on that,
Yep.
Doc, because that's important to understand. I was sitting in church a while back, and pastor was up front talking, and he said, "It's not my job to make your children Christian. It's not my job to lead them." And he looked right at every guy in the room, and he said, "It's your job as fathers to make sure your children get to heaven. It's not my job." He goes, "It's your job. Because if you don't do your job, if you sit there and rely on everybody else to raise your child, give them a point of view, talk to them spiritually, guide them, you're missing your job as a parent, as a dad, to lead that home and to lead that household and get your child to heaven." And it hit me so hard. I'm trying not to get emotional here, because it's true. We've become so lackadaisical in how we think that it's okay for somebody else to give me their viewpoint, and then for me to just say, "Well, that makes sense. I'm just going to follow along," instead of be a contrarian, or maybe just think from a different viewpoint, and understand that it's my role, it's my job to make sure my children have the leadership they deserve, versus just looking at you and saying, "No, I want you to raise my children."
Well, but
Oh,
that happens a lot, though, and I want
Yeah.
to get your take on that, because being a pastor for a long time, I want you to think about this, and I think I'm so hard where they actually see my major alpha dominant masculine traits come out is when I see men distract themselves with things instead of training up their family, training up their companies, training up their people that God gave them responsibility to take care of. I cannot stand when I watch a guy sit and watch a Packer game for 3 hours and then wonder why their kids are influenced by everything else but not them. I can't stand the fact that guys will spend so much time wasted on things. And like I said, and that's why I tell people, I don't look at church, especially for my girls, and I purposely do on purpose. What the pastor tell you? This, he's wrong. He's a moron. Do you say it? I'll literally tell them that. I'm like, no. Because remember, we all know this. It's I kind of laugh at churches a little bit when it comes to certain things because I had a discussion with a person said, well, we have the truth. I said, how many churches have you been to in your life? 10. I said, I bet you said about that every time with that church you had truth, and it's always changing. And I said, you need to find out who has influenced your children, and when they ever go out to society, you need to ask them when they come back. But see, men keep themselves today so distracted. I said, listen, to be a real man in society, the world's your oyster. Because men are created so much in distractions today, and they think it's okay.
Bread and circus. Give them a bread and circus, and you'll keep them busy with distractions. That's what we do.
You going to the Coliseum?
I want you to because you love that one, and on top of that, I want
you.
Well, and then
what do you want my take on? Or my input on?
Well, because you were a pastor for a long period of time, and I was with you through a lot of that stuff that way.
Yeah, I don't go off on a lot of rants.
I want you, for me, can you go off on a little rant for me?
Based on what?
No, because I've seen you with influencing young, because you are good with youth. You're good at this. I think that, and here's why. I think you took more of a role of a teacher.
Right? So
you did a great teaching aspect.
Was I really good with youth, or was I doing what I think was good for youth? I mean, because we always talk about this huge departure rate of, the 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. Once they graduate and then they go off to pursue adulthood, we see this huge departure of, kids in their faith. And they would all of a sudden now personalize it and take it as their own. And would they go and pursue it? Did I really do a good job at instilling a personal faith into this teenager? Did I really pastor them? Did I really?
Yeah, but can let me interrupt. I have to interrupt you on this one. Here's why.
I thought we weren't supposed to.
No, I am. I know the owner of the show. I know the owner of the show. I have to do this because here's what happens. Because I watched your frustration happen so much.
It's not about.
Let me tell you one story. Then you go.
No.
Let me tell you one story because it's going to go in your story. No, but here.
This is about you, not me.
No, this is really about you. Because here's what happens. I've watched you, and to go on your point, I watched you frustrated as a close friend that you would do something at church and you were so frustrated the parents not following up and teaching them the stuff that...
Yeah, well, okay, so I'm a bucker by nature. I mean, pretty much anywhere I go, I don't just fall hook, line, and sinker because that's what you're supposed to do. There's like this inherent thing on the inside of me to always want to challenge, not because it's disrespectful, not because I just want to be an ass and not fall in hook, line, and sinker, but especially when it came to the element of faith and being entrusted with someone's teenager. I was not somebody that was meant to instill this faith-based adherence to pastor and to raise your child.
Exactly.
It was to create dialogue and to hope that I might be able to impart something into this young individual that would go home and have it reinforced by mom, by dad, to see the evidence of the faith in which they profess actually lived out, conversation talked about, create the why behind we believe what we believe, why we profess what we profess, and then therefore to be able to see the fruit of it, right? So did I do a good job? I don't know if I did collectively as a whole and what we stand by. For you to take on, number one, this concept that I've got to raise my children because their eternal placement is in jeopardy if I don't do that, that's a high and lofty, burden that you have on yourself.
I agree with
and
you
I
on
think
that.
to myself, that's, man alive. It's not the church's role. It's not the father's role. But
I'm going to go on the table and ask a question. You stimulate a question. Dana,
D1?
Is it based? No. I'm gonna ask you a question, and I'm gonna ask everyone. You guys go around because here's what happens. This, and we could take some scriptural stuff out of this way.
That's a tough one for me.
No, it's not. I think we've had this conversation. Ross, you stimulated it because we've had this discussion before. Ross and I have talked about. So we've spent so many times hours.
Well,
but
I
here-
know, but so out of my frustration, though, right? Because
Yeah.
you said, the
Yep.
the situations when you bring up. I mean,
No, but I want you to think about this, and I'm so right on this. Do you think it's okay on Judgment Day? Okay, and Skip, I think you're onto something on this way too, and I think it's backed. And Ross, we've talked about this during Judgment Day. Who do you think will be more held accountable for the development, growth in front of God and being judged one day about how your kids turn out? You or Clint?
I mean, he's the leader of the home, and I'm his
So let's
helpmate.
do this. You or Clint?
Clint.
Dana, you or Andy?
I don't like you. Andy.
Nicolette, husband's name?
Tyler.
Tyler, thank you for allowing us to steal your wonderful wife tonight. We appreciate you guys watching some of that. So, what do you think?
Do I have to choose? I think that we'd be held accountable the same. Is that an option?
Well, I got a question for you. What does do you think that we're equal even in the eyes of God?
I think we're equal in different ways. Is that fair?
Equal means same. Remember, define your terms. I'm very good at defining terms. Equal means same.
I think we all have our roles.
The roles, but that's not the same. So, and if God put man as the leader, do you think they were going to be judged the same?
Okay, then he can be the one who's judged.
See, now Skip. See, so
I'm
you
kidding.
would makes you
extra
concur,
sandwich
and it
for
came
that.
from your thing this way. Now, what
Well-
do you think?
Well, if I can echo what Skip said, and I'll be honest, I don't do as good a job with it as I should sometimes, but the stakes are incredibly high.
Extremely.
Extreme,
Extremely, yeah.
I don't think people understand the gravity of eternity. Like,
But now, don't you?
there's
think
no
this way?
do-overs. There's no do-overs in eternity. Like, you get it wrong,
Right.
you don't get to go hang out for 7 years and go, yeah, I screwed some stuff up. Can I get there's no second chance. So when you take on the gravity of eternity and how impactful that is, the stakes are higher than you can even imagine. And I guess I thank you, Skip, for bringing that up, because you kind of shook me a little bit, because I personally
that's the
don't
purpose.
do
Right.
as good a job as I should. I'm very passionate
Yep.
about a lot of things, and I try to raise my boys to be critical thinkers and say, here's the deal. And I was telling Ross off camera before we started how my oldest son went through an apologetics class when he was attending Fox Valley Christian Academy.
Ooh, really?
Eighth grade apologetics class. And I'm like, we don't have enough kids that go through something like that where they can stand up and articulate their faith and talk about the true tenets of the faith. And I think that's where it runs into, well, your kid went to a Christian school and he's brainwashed and he's indoctrinated. And that could very well be the case if you can't articulate what you believe. And I thought it was wonderful that Lincoln had to go through that, because now he's going to FEL. He's a junior at FEL, and he's exposed to God's word on a daily basis. And it's important. There's a lot of, I don't know what's going to happen with this whole whatever comes down the pike, but I know, there's a Southern gospel group that wrote a song, and it basically says, I read the back of the book and I know who wins. And that's what we can hang our hat on, regardless of, what happens.
See, even that right there. See, there's some, after not being in the church for quite a few years, I read the back of the book. I know who wins. as if this is continually being played out, that the battle's still being, no, he won.
And then,
Right,
But
right.
so a part of this
Yeah.
is,
I see what you're saying.
he already won, but we're fighting against things as if we don't have the power, as if we don't have the awareness and the ability to actually make intellectual decisions right now to govern the way that we act, that you can step into this pastoral role, that I can step into authority, that I can step into my feminine. It's about awareness at the end of the day, having an intellectual dialogue in all of these things. But when we keep on putting something like that, the battle's still going. We haven't won yet. You're right.
battle
We
won.
haven't.
See,
Well, I think
But
if
it's
I
a
could add,
morality issue, not to me an eternal placement issue.
right, if I
It's
could
not
add context,
salvation.
I would
come back
say,
to it.
I would say, like we're engaged in spiritual warfare on a daily basis. Like we're getting hammered on a daily basis.
Okay, but think
Roscoe.
about that. So we say that we're in a spiritual battle. It sounds, we've done so much of this has been so over emotionally charged. And because we feel the attack. Did we win or did we not? If you know the end of the story, do you have power or do you not? But I don't care what either you do or you don't. Either you do or you don't. So now we're seeing now we're talking on spiritual issues and we're putting these, and I used to be a worship leader for years and sang all these songs and we charge all of this over spiritualized, over emotional, and I loved it. But I look at it now and I go, holy crap. And when I've dissected a lot of the words and let me ask you this. What is one of the things that we are in constant need of when we go to, that we're always in a constant battle with our feelings and our emotions?
you feel you're in a constant need of forgiveness.
Constant need of forgiveness, constant need of saving, constant need of fixing, constant need of repentance, based on what?
Based on what we've been told to doubt.
And also an emotion and a feeling.
Yes. I'm with you 100%. And the thing is that it's already been won and done.
And you would be able to control your emotions and be stoic.
But
and
why?
That's why
What's the why behind that? Why?
it's very simple. It governs, it tracks women, and they can get them to come back every single week and give them money.
But it does the same thing to men. Because if we can over
Ah,
emotionalize this,
does the same thing to males, not real men.
Well, I'm just saying it does. Men, male, female,
Right.
but it does the same thing. It creates a dependent
Right.
mindset.
But and that's where that's why I sat back and go, most of church is bullshit. I'm not saying loving Jesus, doing anything like that, because I walk around
Paul
victorious
even
all
thought
day.
so. Paul even thought so.
Yeah, Paul did.
Paul. Peter.
Well, the original
John,
churches
Paul.
were organic home churches. The whole idea of a preacher being paid to stand up in front of all these people was basically hijacked from the Greeks, because Socrates would get up and spout all these words of wisdom in front of everybody. There's a really good book out there. I don't know if you guys know who Frank Viola is, but the book's called Pagan Christianity. The Christian faith is slam full of hijacked concepts that the church has brought into it from secular influences. And that's not the way that evangelism was designed back in the Bible. Acts 1:8, I feel like is the OG as far as how we were supposed to evangelize the church, but it's basically become a profession now.
It has.
And it's lost its way a little bit. Now that's not to knock some of the preachers that I listen to, because the message that they bring is great. But again, as the guy who likes to take the 10,000-foot view,
You just talked about the exceptions, not the rules.
Right.
Because here's what happens: the pastor that you went to that closed down, don't know you want to say his name or anything like that. I could never sit and listen to a soy boy like that, because don't tell me that you stand up and love your faith and you're going to close your church. You should be sitting, learning, not leading.
Yes.
And I want to do this before we get in. I'm going to let you guys speak in. Ladies, let me ask you a question. Okay, listen to these men talk and take responsibility. Does that bring you comfort or does that bring you worry? if they took responsibility for what happens with the children and them getting to, as talk about being saved and going to heaven? Does that bring you peace or does that bring you worry?
When they speak to the concerns of their children's souls
Yeah.
and leading them,
Yeah.
it gives me a ton of comfort to hear that there's men in our community that care that much.
Dana?
Yeah, definitely comfort.
Dana?
Yes, very attractive.
And see,
quality.
that's the point. And see, that's where I think that men, think about what we just said that when we talk about us getting together and just dialoguing and stuff like that. That's the whole thing is sit down, talk about politics, talk about religion, talk about everything when you get together. There might be some emotions thrown out, but men were supposed to be more stoic than women are and stuff like that. And we can have these battles to be victorious. And that's victorious over self.
Well, my goal is to now take what we've talked about and use that to be more
Better.
and
Yeah.
be more intentional with the conversations I have, with my boys.
Yeah.
Because there's, like I said, the stakes are high.
Yeah, it is. Ross.
So, the stakes are high, right? Absolutely. I don't place this concept of my children's eternal placement as my end all be all. Like, man, I'm worried about my son's salvation. I'm worried about my daughter's salvation. No, what I'm worried about more than anything is being the epitome of self-regulation, self-control, self-awareness, fortifying my ability to have engaged intellectual conversations, to show up, to be morally aware as to why I would choose to treat somebody in the same way that I would want to be treated, to love as I would want to be loved, to even show up in a black and white manner, fully in force in my masculine traits. But it is not of, to me, that's a morality issue that it's we're supposed to do unto others as we'd want done unto us, right? One of the greatest commandments, love what?
Love one another. Love your neighbor as yourself. Yep.
Right? We're not talking about eternal placement here. We're talking about a morality issue. I would rather, and I think the byproduct of this is that you walk free.
Can I ask a
you
quick
walk
question?
with a little bit of a different bounce in your step. But
Wouldn't that be the same thing? And I agree, and I'm 100% agree with you.
But when we're talking about the stakes are so high. The stakes are so high for me that I get my son and my daughter two equally different approaches, right? To walk in a way that they're not in fear. They're not living in a place of lack. They're not living in a place of constant judgment or need of repentance or need of constant saving, because that is such a crippling existence on a day-to-day basis. Now we're talking, obviously with a heavy spiritual overtone here, but I want them to understand the byproduct of being morally aware, morally just, balanced, emotionally aware, self-regulated. But my daughter to show up different, and my son, obviously going into the Marines, fully equipped to step into those masculine roles when called upon, versus feeling like he's coming from a place of lack.
Right.
Living victoriously.
Correct.
Right,
Because he is.
Which I think,
And
for example,
I want to embody that for him.
I've always said this. I personally believe, and I have no proof of this, so I'm just going to say, come back to my own working this stuff out, that there's a lot of truth within the Bible. But I also believe there's a lot of truths within the immunology book. But I remember, Skip, when we were in school, immunology books would be like, they talk about a vaccine once or twice. Now, what does the book tell you every other page? That's
Get
Jesus.
vaccinated. Yep.
Vaccines are the greatest. How do we even get here right now without a vaccine?
Exactly.
And you and I see the detriment
Yep.
of what that has done because the narrative has changed.
Yes.
And here's what happens, and this is why I'm critical of our practice of churches and stuff like that, because I believe that I think what causes a man to walk victorious, I think a man should only fear one thing. This is just me, and you guys, I want your take on this. Like, I agreed with everything you said, not one thing different. I'm going to add to a little bit. I do want men to walk in fear of God, because then the morality, then the things you walk victorious, because I'm like, dear God, I know you got me. I better not piss you off. No, I don't want a spanking from my father. You saying? Because what's really funny, ladies, and you've told me this many times. What's your threat to your boys?
Oh, telling Dad.
Wait till Dad gets home. Andy gets home, dude. You're like, no, man. You know, it's like I used to laugh when my mom used to spank me with a spoon. She's probably watching right now. I understand, Mom. It was great. You know what I'm saying? Just to laugh because it's like no matter how, and she hit hard, but there was that. They didn't just have that reverence of fear of your mother, and I don't want my girls to fear their mother. You know what I'm saying? If you have to do that, it just puts them in a place of not nurturing. Dana, question for you: would you rather be a nurturer or instill the fear? And I know you can do both. I've known you for a lot of years. But what would you? Where would you like to stay?
For sure.
Nicolette, where would you like to stay?
I always like to tell my kids that I'm going to start raising my voice now, but I didn't want to originally.
Dana?
Exactly. I like being the nurturer, and I have to be the punisher sometimes, and I really don't like it.
Yeah, and it just fills my soul when I get to just beat on people in general. Now, when I use the word beat, I mean mentally, not physically and stuff like that. So, but the thing is bringing to attention for them my kids to grow and things like that.
I think coming back to the point that I was trying to make originally with what my pastor had said was that you cannot take a passive role in how your children are being
Amen.
raised.
I agree.
And giving them the right. 100%. Yeah, exactly. And I know that again, I don't see it as a burden, and I don't live in fear that my children have to repent and all this stuff, because I do understand fully that we've won, that everything has been bought and paid for on the cross, and that's the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. The other side of it is that I am responsible though for showing my son faith, for walking him in and leading him. So I'll have dads reach out and they'll say, I don't get how you can do a Bible study every Saturday with your son. And I hit them back and say, well, it's not hard. You just take a Bible and you open it. Mm-hmm. And they're worried that they're going to make a mistake. They're worried they're going to lead their child the wrong way. But if they let their innate intuition take over, which is God instilled in them, they won't make a mistake, because they'll explain it exactly how they feel it has to be explained at that time in that moment if they're present. But the bottom line to all that is that we need to take an active role in leading our children, and dads need to step up, and so do moms, and both embrace both sides of it. But again, it's knowing that I have the power to lead my son and lead my daughter, because it's totally different with my daughter. She's 15. It's amazing what she does, and I'm floored when I hear her talk and I hear her write and I hear what comes out of her mouth, and I'm just like, where in the hell did you hear that from? Mm-hmm. How do you think like this? Because I could listen to you for hours and learn. But I know that she's a blank slate, and I know everything that she has brought into her head has come from her mother and myself, and the people that I've chosen to bring into her life to help lead her as well. But I have to rely on myself as the parent, as the dad, to bring the leadership in. And that, I think that's where it comes back to, is lead from that perspective. And when I hear my son make things like, I don't like that person, or I'll hear, like one day we were driving in the car and he's like, that goddamn Joe Biden. And I turned around and I said, can you tell me why you're making that statement? And he couldn't. He's like, well, it's just, I said, no, buddy, I understand what you're saying. Yep. But you're listening to things that dad listens to, and I listen to things differently that you're going to. But we have to have an understanding as to why you feel that way. Why, like, can you tell me why? And eventually he made some very valid points. But again, they're going to mimic what we do, and it's how I'm leading him, right? So I had to take a minute and look at that and be like, dang.
And that's what that you just actually explained why this podcast is important. Because you know why? How old is he?
He's 12.
There's a lot of 12-year-old, 50-year-olds out there where they are this. Okay, why? Articulate. Well, they can't. Mm-hmm. And see, and then look at the difference. You can see where they're coming from, and then that sometimes by having that dialogue and getting deep, it's like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Mm-hmm. And that's why you can have totally opposite beliefs. Because if I think a lot of people will see me more like, and publicly as more like a libertarian conservative person that way. But when I tell them I'm a communist with my family, like, well, explain. I'm like, I want my family to be dependent on me. And every woman goes, oh my goodness, that, because by nature, they're looking for a protector and provider. And you want your wife to be like, nah, they can depend on them. So I want to be a communist to my family. but I don't want to be a commerce to your family.
Right.
But if I'm going to sell you, I'm going to create an emotional statement that says, man, grandma doesn't have food. And I know it sounds funny. The farther you get away from the closeness of a person, the less you care. And especially now, but here's what happens, but it always sounds good that we need to help somebody else's grandma. It always sounds good. So we're just going to take a little bit from you. See, we had a wonderful guy I actually support massively, Elijah Banky on here. He's fantastic. He's voted, and I look at every one of his votes. But here's the point. And
he was here, wasn't he?
Yeah. But the one thing that we had a disagreement on, but he knew where I was coming from, where I said, and Skip, you and I are on the same page on this, government shouldn't be involved in any healthcare. And he right away said, well, and he's like, he pushed back a little bit until I said, well, where's the line? Because what happens this? If you look at it this way, when we implemented federal tax, it started, well, we need 0.5% to govern the war, and then we'll give it back. Government doesn't give anything back. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's why what they'll do is an emotional argument. They'll say, we're just going to do this for some time to take care of this person. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, sounds great. But that's not really true, because I don't mean it negatively, but I'm not responsible for the world.
Or 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
That's right. And I'm like, I don't give a crap. I don't care. I really don't care if your grandma's weak and died from COVID. I really don't. I don't. Because when you look at the fact of you close their business down, you hurt people. There's a lot of, my company, your company, was actually lucky that we were wealthy before it got there. But see, they don't want wealthy men anymore. They don't want wealthy families anymore. Because you know why they don't want them? Same reason. That's right. Then you're not dependent on what the government does to you.
They want sheep.
They don't want
entirely
intellectual
dependent.
families.
Right.
They don't want.
Right.
Ignorance is bliss, but the problem is in the midst of ignorance, man, you just have the whole rug pulled out from underneath you, and you don't know any different.
No, I'm not laughing at you. I just laughed and going, we went through one question.
Yeah, but it spiraled off into so many things.
Good, strong, critical thinking people in general are contrarian by nature.
Yes.
They
will
rebellious.
challenge everything.
And and that's
Not
okay.
out of disrespect, but out of I want to know.
They
why.
want education.
Correct.
And that's when you find you have the most intellectual and in gaining conversations from somebody that actually can push back, that does ask you questions, that makes you critically think, or think to yourself, damn, I don't have the answer to that. I got to figure that out. And that's what makes conversations like this actually change resonance and energy among people.
Yes. Thank you, Skip.
I spend a lot of time trying to be self-educated, because I tried the education thing by going to college, and that was not my thing. I went for TV and radio, and after I figured out that the guys in the classroom were the ones that failed at TV and radio, I discovered that I probably need to go a different route. But I mean, I find myself reading stuff all the time and researching, and that's I told you guys before we got on that I find myself in rabbit holes all the time, but I always try to step back and try to get context on everything that's going on. And that's why when the boogeyman came through 2-3 years ago, I was I had somebody tell me this was going to happen back in like October of 2019. And I told people, hey, just so you guys know, in 2020, this is going to be rolling out. And they all looked at me like I was Noah building some sort of a boat.
Yep.
And looked at me like I was crazy. And then it happened. And then they were like, oh, didn't you tell me this was going to happen? I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make me some sort of big shot. But when you dig into things, I find it funny that we have more availability to information than we've ever had before, and we're some of the stupidest people on the planet because of it.
They always say information is knowledge is power. That's not true. It's not true at all. You know why? We have more knowledge at our fingertips ever in history, and we're fatter, broker, everything in history that way. It's applying it. And it's really funny because something struck me, because I love defining terms, because that's how you blur the lines by not knowing what they really stand for. I love disrespect. So do you, Skip. Now let me explain. Because even how respect is defined as is having a deep admiration for someone, their abilities, their qualities, and achievements. I'm sorry, I don't want to be respectful to this person like Joe Biden. Because you have to have an admiration for them. But you ever think of it this way, ladies, how do you win over a man?
Respect.
Respect. There's an admiration. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing. It's like, because when we look at being respectful, I'm like going, what do you define as respectful? Because your definition is saying that I gotta, if I tell your ideas are fine, you're actually admiring their idea. No, I'm sorry, you got a dumb idea. I talk about this with men all the time. I think that men not telling people that you're just a moron, you say I'm being respectful. No, that means you're admiring. That you have admiration for what they're doing. And I'm sorry. And see, Skip, what you talked about, the pandemic to Skip and I and people like us wasn't. We've been fighting this for more than 3 years, because the vaccine lie has been going on for 50 years.
Well over.
Yeah. And so when we actually realized that how big of a lie pharmaceuticals are, and then 3 years, Skip and I are going, we've been telling you this since we've been in practice and since we were even in school. Remember that? So that's why when you see the things that come about, but see, we believe that most people have been just distracted, or they take authority as the expert. Do you understand that you'll see that a lot with men that don't lead? Men that don't lead don't respect authority, and they're not supposed to. Because authority means they give control over your life. Do you understand? And that's a tough part.
Well, healthcare is a great way to control people.
Yeah.
I mean,
So is religion.
Yeah.
So is religion.
And so is religion. I mean, that's a subject that I've dove into, and germ theory is a phenomenal cash cow.
Yeah, it's a
If you can,
it's a big lie.
if you can convince people that if I cough on you, Ross, you're going to be sicker than a dog, and then you're going to go to the clinic, and then they're going to spitball what the heck's the matter with you, and then they're going to go, here's a pill, and it's just it's a perpetual cash cow. The Rockefeller Foundation is making a killing right now.
I'm gonna ask our three wonderful ladies here. I want you guys to run on this for me, okay? Now, Danny, you're exception to rule because you've known me for a long time, and it's gonna be a little exception to rule. But I want you in general with friends and things like this. When COVID came out, okay, think of it this way, and we know this. I even guarantee that your husbands are like, it's a bunch of crap, but. And then the but allows women now to be manipulated through their emotions. Like, oh, there's a virus. This. I got to protect our kids. We got to protect this way. Do you understand that the majority of men are like, it's a bunch of crap. But, do you understand? And that's where I want to say men have to stop the buts. Because you know why? Because that, to me, shows the difference between a weak and a strong man, is when they say the but. But I got to pay my bills. But I got to do these things. But I just don't want a conflict. But I'm like, and that's the part. So when COVID came out, now Dana, a little different for you, but Nicoletta, I said just getting to know you now that way. If you think about it this way, and we're talking about politics and talk about religion, everything, and you talked about it, so they're creating an emotional response. And who are they trying to manipulate out there, the men or the women?
Women.
Yeah, for sure. Women.
Mm-hmm. And that's why if you look at the arguments that's always given when it talks about taking care of somebody, from a political view, from a healthcare standpoint, they're always trying to emotionally manipulate who?
Women. It's easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much easier. Mm-hmm. So much easier. So that's why I sit there and go, be careful at giving those decisions to those kind of characteristics. Because all I have to do is create an emotional art. Remember, I taught today. Remember, all relationships are psychological. One's psycho, one's logical. Okay? We'll let you decide who. Okay? But and it's making fun of but also telling some truth there. That the fact that, listen, if we're going to appeal to somebody, the majority of men are going to try to appeal logically. It doesn't mean that there's not emotional things. But the idea is, logically, you're going to have to govern people through it. But emotionally, you can get women to do a lot of stuff just by some emotional argument. Ross, what you got?
So in that, though, so if we are trying to pander to the emotion and over feminize things, what is by nature still going to if the males, right, step out of their masculine, what do the women have to become?
Masculine.
Women have to become masculine.
So I mean, you're not.
Both sides
So
of it.
if we get back to the traits, right,
Yep.
which is not a gender specific trait.
Apologize. Can you explain that? Because by nature, the majority of men, the exceptions,
by
not the
nature,
rules.
yes, but
Yes.
I believe that all traits are inherent on the inside of every single one of us, just by nature. If we're talking about God design,
Yeah, I'll argue with you on that because
if it's
not by
okay,
nature.
but if it's
because
not, if
because
it's
you know
not,
if they've done
but
that.
hold
they
on,
say it.
I know, but if it's not inherent, then it wouldn't be possible for women to step into masculine. Sure,
But
I
that-
get it.
that's
I
like their
get it.
That's not
exception,
true.
'cause
But
80% of the
I
time.
get it though that it can be trained and some just step into it and then they grow into and they become this. But there's still traits that exist. We just know them to be more predominant in males and more predominant
No,
in females.
I'm still
on
going to
the
disagree
side.
with that 100% because by nature, if you watch little boys and little girls, if you watch them before they can talk, before they can do it, they even exude certain
I
traits. That
understand,
are
but
there.
my point is that this whole ploy of over feminization, over emotionalize, over romanticize everything. We do that so much and we pander to that. The
Yes.
masculine does not go away at all.
Okay, so you're saying no that way.
It
Yeah.
does
Yeah,
not
I
go
get-
away. These
I get
traits
what you're
still
saying.
have to come forward. These traits still have to move an agenda. It still has to move a train of thought forward. It still has to move a discussion. Because someone's going to take control eventually. You cannot.
Well, and you know it's really funny. If you watch this during times of trouble, people don't move towards nurturing feminine traits. They move towards masculine traits to lead them out of the tough times. And so that's why I said, guys, this is the greatest opportunity in history in my generation right now to be able to step up and be a man and lead and actually and develop yourself that way. And I watch men cave because they want, and I said, I know I pick on this a lot. They want to watch Packers more than they want to work on themselves.
Well, that broke my heart during COVID. Was in our profession, Dr. Pat,
Yep.
was the leaders not lead.
But who considers them leaders? Do you
Right.
understand?
No,
Yeah.
I get it fully. And I had this massive, I don't want to call it an awakening, but more an epiphany where it's like, dude, like where the hell is everybody right now? And my mom called me that day in the car and she's like, I was talking to her on the phone and she's like, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to lead them.
Yep.
I said, we can't sit back and just let all of this happen and shrink and cower and wonder what's going on when we just need to lead. But you're 100% correct. I think that inherently it's both sides are in the people because even if we look at, and you're the hormone doc, and you know that males have testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen.
Yep.
Female has estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. They're just governed in different regulations.
Well, they also
Yes.
govern different amounts. Though.
Exactly.
Right,
So-
no doubt.
Exactly.
I'm not going to disagree on a biological level,
Yep.
but to say that, I think it goes back to this idea of
But the
agenda,
thought process.
weaponization, and
Yes.
it's been a complete hijacking, and the attack has been against what we would say and what we would deem as what we was proper roles based
Yeah.
on even on biological makeup.
Yep.
Which is testosterone versus the estrogen, right?
Because if
who
these
can handle
three-
stress better?
That's it. If these three ladies sit in masculine traits,
They'll
they're going
get
to skip
sick.
their cycles. They're going to do all
Yes.
things this, and so that's why I govern.
Absolutely.
And it said I became, like I said, and you do the same thing. The best doctors, believe it or not, have more feminine characteristics. That's why I sit there with women. You sit there with a mom, and doc, you understand me, even though you're not a mom. Right. Because anybody can put themselves in a situation that's empathetic. But I can put myself in that situation, but I still can't fully experience what it is to have those kind of traits, though. You know what I'm saying? Because in a little bit, you can understand them, you can relate, be empathetic. But like I said, I can empathize with a woman when she's holding her belly because her cycle's so bad, but I still can't experience it. I still don't get the full experience, nor does a woman get the full experience, even if they take testosterone shots and jack it up. It's abnormal. The body will reject it.
So where are the leaders? Where are the men? Well, the men have been told that they don't matter.
Exactly.
Yes.
Their voice doesn't matter anymore. We don't need men to have children. We don't need men to raise our to be present in the home and to lead the home.
Yeah, that's
We
exactly
don't
right.
need men.
Well,
So because the women, this agenda has been told and it's been put out in spades, so men just check out. Okay, we're not needed anymore.
They
So
do.
They give that
One
up.
second, both of you guys. Dana, you're gonna say something that way because I knew you're
Yeah,
jumping
no, I
down that
kind
one.
of lost it now. But no, I was just listening to a podcast this morning, and they were talking about that actually, and they were saying, all these women now, they're like, where are all the strong men and where are all the good men? And it's like, you did this.
You created the very person that you can't stand anymore,
you
or
did.
that you're wondering where they are.
Right? You said that they need to have more emotions and that they need to share everything. And then you said you don't need them and now you don't need them for kids. Well, now they're gone, or all the good ones are at home with the normal wives raising kids and we're whatever in the kitchen and barefoot and all that
Watching the Packer game for 3 hours.
Yes,
stuff.
there you go.
Exactly. That's where they are. Like,
I'm not speaking to my marriage, just to be clear. It's almost football season. We both watch.
Women have done this to men, and I do think it is the job of the men to still take it back and to step into that masculinity that they do have inside of them, right? And it's not that hard to actually be masculine. Like, you go out and you protect and you provide for your family and you stand up for what's right. You don't need to be eating raw meat every day and flexing muscles and
Well,
things
to
like
be
that.
fair-
That's nice, and
But
that's
it can be
I was
hard,
saying,
right?
Whatever.
But it is kind of nice.
I mean,
if
it
they do
is
that.
nice, but at the core, at the core of the masculine is his mission and pursuing freedom.
And
That's
they
what you
want-
need to be
yeah.
doing. The core of the feminine is love.
All right,
It's not
so
the same.
So let's do this because we're now
All
going
right.
to get to our second question, and you set it up quite well.
Perfect.
As we were putting all this together, it's kind of neat watching the in-depth thought and see. I'm an observer, so I'm watching you guys' facial expressions, and I see you guys go, and oh, and then it's kind of neat because that's the purpose. And we talked about before, just at the little break here. That's why I think these things need to be discussed with the people that you love the most, friends, loved ones, family. And so when they tell you not to talk about religion and politics, I'm like, what are you doing? Because how are you supposed to figure things out, or how are you supposed to know, because it's also as a protector and provider and man that way, it's like, if I have an aunt that is like, believes extremely opposite I do, I don't want the influence around my kids. But how do you figure it out? Sometimes, I know it sounds funny, but we see these things happen. Sexual abuse happens by some of the closest people to you, to the kids. So if we were having these discussions and all of a sudden I had a relative that had these massive, dramatically different beliefs than I do, I'm sorry, I'm keeping my kids away from that stuff because I don't know what's going to happen if they go over the house, watch the wrong thing, expose the wrong, hear the wrong thing that way. But we can't talk about saying, hey, how's your job? Okay? It's like going, no, you know what I'm saying? And I do have to clarify this just because Nicolette busted me on this a little bit, so thank you for doing this, but I'm there. But I'll say is this. Now, when I say this, and I make fun of the Packers, I make fun of an individual, a guy, sitting there and wasting 3 hours of life. Skip, how much could you teach your child? How much could you teach your son and daughters and stuff like that if you weren't wasting the time because there's no benefit to you sitting there by yourself? Now, if my friends and family were massive Packer fans, I will probably put on a jersey, paint my face, and I won't even really watch the game. It'll be more of community
driven with your family.
That's my point.
What value is it adding to
Yeah, is there
your
a value
family?
I believe that a
value
Packer
add?
game can bring massive value
Yeah.
if there's community brought together. I'm cool with that. Do you understand? So just be clear on that because, like I said, it's like, but I just can't respect because I have no admiration for a man that their family deserves more if they're sitting there for 3 hours and watch a Packer game and doing nothing that makes their life better.
Oh, it kills me. It kills me, Doc, because case in point, and my family might get mad at me for this. I don't really care because it really put me off. Was the kids are all playing, and it was this last Saturday, and family member just is like, "Hey, can we get the kids out of here? I'm trying to watch the game."
Oh,
and I was sitting there, and I'm like, well, no, like what? They don't need to leave. You can watch the game on mute and listen to the kids and play and watch them have fun. This isn't I need to have complete solitude to get mad or be happy. Yeah. I like my family around. Is the game on? Yeah. Am I concentrating on the game? Not so much. But that's because Julie's not concentrating on the game.
Right.
That's because Brecken's not concentrating on the game. Different situation, right? But to say that and to say remove everything from my environment so I can have 3 hours to sit there and watch 24 men go at it 22 men go at it on a field. that doesn't bring a lot of value to me or my family.
Exactly. I love that.
But that brings me to what you and I talked about, which is what I need you to answer, Dana, is you, before we took our little break, you kind of went on a little bit of a vent session about your podcast and how you basically said that the women created this problem that we have. So I'm going to throw it back at you. How do you propose that we basically solve that problem?
Well, men should take it back because men are the leaders. I don't think that women just need to give it back. I mean, yeah, that's nice and all. I'm not saying that women shouldn't have any part in this, but men are the leaders and they need to start by taking that back in their relationships, in the work world, whatever it is.
But there's 7 of us sitting at the table right now, and I think as a community we share that passion you have for, hey, the dudes gotta be dudes and take it back. How do we blow that out into the community and get people to buy back into that? Because if you turn on Fox News, you're being told that dudes are dumb and they don't run the family. If you turn on the Idiot Box and you watch a sitcoms are all geared around how the dad's the dope of the family and the
Emasculation.
mom is the emasculation of it. So if you're already in that mode of sitting and being programmed all the time, how do we get over the hump and back up the program?
Damon,
Okay,
you
so
go
I
now. I'm
have-
going to go after this.
Okay, so I have 2 pieces for this. I'm really glad you brought this up. So, I mean, part of it is just what I said before, right? You do things that are inherently masculine that you all know how to do. You all know how to protect and provide. You all know how to go out and keep people safe, right? That's inherent. Just do those things. It's not actually, all that hard. However, I will step back.
Wait. Quick question. May I?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Quick
Yeah, go
question. I know I'm not supposed to interrupt,
No, it's okay.
right?
I'm still gonna say
But
my thing.
When we say things like, it's not that hard, to a man, that's all we hear a lot of times that's that part of that, come on, dude, just step up. It's not that hard. And we're like, go ahead.
Okay, I will
If it's
I
not,
will-
you know,
I
but
will
you know what I'm
change-
saying?
I will-
That's
yeah, I will-
that's where
I
a
will-
guy
I
would
will
go,
change my tone.
oh, if it's not that hard, show me. Because they hear it. That's the redundant emasculation.
Yes. And that's what we have to.
And then a man should also be saying that, though. I shouldn't actually be the one saying it.
That's what I was saying. I
Right.
said, but you hear it comes from a state of frustration because feminine women are going to say that to a man that's not acting masculine. So because she's going, I'm doing it for you. It's not that hard. You saying, so I understand your point because I know you.
And
as
Ross,
a
and
friend.
I understand.
No,
I
that- but
understand your
see,
point. And
this is-
that's very fair because I
it's-
do try to be careful how
It's the very hard nature of saying, just step in and take it. I would love for that to be the case. You mentioned, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, that no woman should be stepping into that role and telling a man, but it's got to start somewhere. So, I think at this point in time, a woman does, as a wife, have the right, and I know it's an awkward statement to make,
Like
but
statement.
we're talking about if you're wanting to see change and you want to empower and you want to awaken that man to step into that role, you might actually have to get into the difficult, the conflict, and conflict well. But it's the full circle conversation, not the emasculation. It's have a dialogue. Let's talk to me. This family's I'm in need. I need help. I can't do this. What can I do? Right? It's this healthy dialogue to awaken the man to say, you know what? You're right.
Dana, I want to finish the
said
second
that for
point.
him. Sorry.
And I agree with that, but
Compliment
I'm
both.
going to get a little more vulgar with it. On the woman's side of things, look, there are a lot of women out there right now who want that more masculine men, who want men to step up a whole lot more. Now, women hold the keys too.
Sex.
Men will do anything for pussy, you guys. If we just start demanding more masculinity, the market will change.
And now let's run on this point. I want you to think about
Disagree.
this. No, I want you, you have to finish my other part of the statement. Women hold.
I do disagree.
Women hold the key to sex. Men hold the key to marriage.
Well, yes.
So you
I
got to have
disagree.
both.
I totally
But
disagree with that.
Here's
Yeah.
my point. Here's my point. I want you to think about. Okay, is I want you to think about this. When you talked about how do you change it, let's look at Dana. Let's come back to this too, because believe it or not, how our country started, how it's based on some of this. Do you understand that there's goodwill that even our Constitution depends on for community to come together and help? Mm-hmm. That's why charity is even part of our country, the way it's set up to help. Okay, and what was the central place of community for a long time?
Church.
The church.
The church.
Yeah.
And then, believe it or not, what happens is this: there you had a leader, majority time a man, leading, going, okay, do this right, do these things, this, and you talked about morality. We're supposed to pull that morality from a biblical world. Do you understand? And the idea is this. And so I have a different perspective, and I'm not saying I'm right on this. Okay? It comes to this. If there's 30 women outside, and I use the example all the time, but it just makes so much sense to me. This is one part, this is, like I tell people, I can be swayed on this one. Okay? Now, not my example, but the part I want to elaborate on. If I walk outside and there's 30 women protesting about what I'm doing, I'm like, bitches, get out of the way. No joke, because I have no fear of a woman saying something to me. There's 30 men out there protesting. You have a little bit more caution walking outside, don't you? Mm-hmm. So I don't think. Now remember, I can be swayed on this one. This is one time I'll tell you, my opinion can't change in this. I don't think it should be a fed up wife going, get your shit together. We're in this together. Because that happens all the time. Why do you think women initiate 70%, 80% of all the divorces today? They just get sick of telling them. But a man comes along and says, get your shit together. You're in my community. We need to do this together. I think the women would have more respect for those kind of men and actually search out those kind of men because they're going, listen, because if I come to you and say, get your shit together, compared to a woman coming to you saying, get your shit together, sorry, ladies, it's more impactful coming from me to your husband than it's coming from you to the husband. Now, remember, I can be swayed in this, but I'm like, sorry.
Why do you think that is, though? Like, speaking from my single mom years, that was probably the most, like, baptism by fire course on how to become a parent, right? Yep. When all you want to do is be a parent one day, and all of a sudden you're a single parent, and then there's issues. Yep. And there's so many things that you see are so broken, right? Healthcare, the education system, help for anyone that has any type of behavioral or additional physical needs, right? Yep. These things are hard, super hard. So you're a single mother trying to step into your masculine. You're a single father is trying to step into the feminine. Like, how do we get our voices heard? Like, is it understanding that we all have these different traits that fall along these sides and we should honor them? Like, I want my husband to lead and be a strong masculine, lean into that, but I want him to feel comfortable to lean into the feminine traits too.
Can I ask you a question? Think of it this way. Don't know your husband and stuff, like just getting to know you this way. But here, if you look at your husband's friends, what are they like?
I would say they're all similar with strong moral compasses that, strong masculine men.
What was your ex-husband like? And who are the people around him?
He's still in my life because he's the father of my children.
By
and
nature.
it was a different phase.
And
it
he
was
will
a different
be.
phase, right?
And that's
and
okay. And it's okay.
Yes. Right.
But who is he surrounded by? What guys is he surrounded by? And so and see, that's one thing I tell you.
But like, why? Like, when we say how do we change that? Like, is it just one side of it? I don't think it is.
I believe it is, because now let me go this. So it's kind of cute this way. So Clint and I were talking yesterday about this way, and we were out golfing yesterday morning. We were talking about some great manly stuff, and obviously, their son Mason and my daughter Trinity have been hanging out together since they were little. I would even agree to a prearranged marriage on that.
Oh.
Now, but I was telling Clint and I were talking about this from some manly stuff. That way is this. You see, if let's say that I had a daughter and wanted to marry his son. Okay, do you understand? I am a little bit more fearful of young ladies today, because what they'll do is they'll want to get a guy, get married, and let's say they want to do the right things and be a feminine woman that way. But you know what happens is, until a young man has started to develop his value, all the girl can judge him on is his potential.
Yeah.
So I look and go, when he's like, yep, Mason's designed this way. And I said to Clint, you know something? If Trinity marries Mason, I have no worry about Mason. He's like, really? I said, yeah, because you're the most influential person in his life. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I have full confidence what Mason's going to turn out to be like. And it's so funny, it's not disrespectful to Dana. I'm not worried about how Mason Tatum's out based on her. And see, that's why I said if we get together as 4 strong guys, masculine guys, and start talking to other guys. And I know it sounds funny, and it's also good that if, let's say, a guy rejects these kind of principles that way, to look at the wife saying, you're better off getting divorced because you are going to suffer. And you're the perfect example because you just made a perfect example. Your husband sounds like one of us. You understand? Masculine, strong, take care of this. You're like, and you didn't have to do those things compared to the ex-husband. And I'm hoping the ex-husband's watching saying, dude, you're a douchebag. You had a wonderful wife that wanted to live with you and do other things the rest of your life.
Right.
But
It's the value of the feminine energy.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like, I want to tell my husband I appreciate him.
Yep.
Give me something to appreciate.
Right.
Yep. And I want them to say like, hey, I got this. It's all right. It's going to be okay. And
Yep.
do that for me. So yeah, it's kind of leaning in.
that's good. Yep.
I'm going to,
And then we'll get to the second question after your statement because then we got to get
The
to our second
elusive
questions.
second question.
I want to kind of get to this idea that, we say that it should be a guy coming into a guy, right? Based on his community, shaking the tree, right?
Yep.
That's great, but it's not reality. It's not happening.
But that's why we're in state.
I understand this concept. Oh, they just need to take it, but it's not how it's going to happen right now. It's not going to be the immediate. It's not going to have the immediate impact we want. The guy.
I disagree.
No, I'm saying in the immediate, like right now. If you were to in this problem, if you were to go home and wait for a group of guys, you're going to be waiting for a while because you're depending on the social influence of the males that your current husband or not current or your previous they're not in that same frame of thought. So when are you and I going to actually have said conversation? It's a great concept, but it's not reality. It's not happening tonight. We're not all driving over there to have this intervention, right?
No,
but I also go back.
But if she came, but here's the problem. See, we
I know,
think
but
these can't be solutions, but she would be better off going to her friend's husband and saying, hey, listen, we're dealing with this.
But I would say that it even goes back to the idea that I would have no problem if I get married again someday. If I was ever screwing up in my role, if that woman who I called wife, my partner, actually sat me down and said, dude, you asked me to marry you. I didn't ask you to marry me. What's going on? And to start this, because that's really how the majority of this is. The man asks the woman to marry him. So therefore, there's a responsibility that he has towards her. And it's also okay to conflict well, right? A woman should be able to step into that space and say, you asked me for this. Where's your responsibility to lead me? Where's your responsibility to be the protector, the provider? That's...
They can ask. I agree. They can ask a question.
I know, but see, we're talking about getting men to stand up. And if a woman is empowered with these concerns and I want you to lead.
And what the most males do with that?
Well, I understand, given the current climate.
Nothing.
I know, but that's my point, though. But where does it start? I think it has to be on all sides. Men need to be more involved in the men's lives and be willing to stand up and going against the very thing that I can't stand, hold them accountable. But this is a different version of accountability, okay? But I also think it's, I know, but it's also, I think it's also a very healthy and mature perspective to realize that a woman could step into that space and say, you know what? See this? You asked me to marry you. Where are you? And it'll be no different for a man to be able to do that. You know what? You agreed to do life with me. Yep. Where's the support? Where is the peace? Where's the love? Where's the respect, admiration? I think it's totally because outside of this, if we were married, my responsibility is to you, not to you. And your responsibility is to me, not to a group of girls that you can have a wonderful time conversing and bitching and pissing and moaning about my inability to step up and be a man. You can have that conversation there, but you can't have it with me because most people aren't mature in that relationship to step in the space and take responsibility for what they're bringing to the table.
All right, we're gonna go on. We'll come back to you. We're gonna go on this one because it's gonna all relate. It's all right.
I took
Great
it there.
dialogue.
You heard the word.
It's
I
fantastic.
know, and then I knew.
So in this relates, and I have two statements. They kind of coincide together, so they're going to be a combination of it. And here's my statements. So my statements. Okay, so I understand this. I will never trust a man that chooses his family over personal growth, and a true man does not need accountability from another man.
Wait, so these are two questions in one that we have to.
They're related, and see, we talk about accountability.
I just brought up the word accountable.
Because so I want you to, so let's start with the first one because it ties in the second one so well with what you talked about. Is I personally, this is me, I'll never trust a man that chooses his family over personal growth. Dana, agree or disagree?
I agree.
I agree.
Ross.
Don't forget to come up to the mic.
Oh,
You're
okay.
fine. You're
I
fine for
agree.
that one.
Yep. Ross.
You know.
I disagree.
Dana?
Okay, that's not what I thought. I agree.
I agree.
Nicolette?
Can you say the question one more time?
I will never trust a man that chooses his family over personal growth.
Disagree.
Okay, so we're going to go backwards now. Nicolette, we're going to start with you.
Ooh.
Okay, articulate why.
I feel as though if you're sacrificing something in regards to your family for personal growth, then it becomes self-fulfilling versus the best interest for the family.
Skip.
I completely think opposite of what you just said. The betterment of me actually betters my family.
I agree.
The betterment of my being able to lead, the betterment of me to be able to handle my finances, the betterment of me to be able to lead people in my business, raise my children. If I have to do stuff personally so I can get to a level to be a better dad, better father, better husband, then that to me is the most important thing. And I find it incredibly disheartening when men will make an excuse
Yes.
to
There we
not
go.
make an excuse, make their family the excuse, when really they're too damn afraid to acknowledge what's going on with themselves and seek the help they need to be a better dad, to be a better leader, to be a better boss. That's the statement that would drive me nuts because they use their family as an excuse. It's not the value of the family. If they truly had the value of the family would be brought together on it.
That's where I'm going.
Right.
with it.
And
Yep.
I know that's what I'm pretty sure I know that's what you meant.
Good.
But that's the thing.
Right, but see, you just proved my point that way. That's why these things need to be discussed. Because then I sit there and go, as a guy, and I'll give you a perfect example, and I will not use his name, okay? But the idea is I have a doc. Too, for example, if you met him, personality-wise, great, things like this. But his wife would, and see, this is where his wife has had these discussions and said, I'm committed to you, I'm married to you, but, and he still doesn't listen. And so the wife calls me. Do you say calls me and says, and talks about those things. And it's interesting. So what, and I'd say, and you talked about it, Skip. You know what's really funny? I can honestly say this, just from having these discussions. I want you two more around my life.
Foul!
It's easy.
Well, good.
That's
You
easy.
know, do you follow me on that?
Yeah.
See, because the thing is this way, because this is how you build that community to make other men grow. Mm-hmm. And so, and come back to this and see. So what happened is this. So I called him up because his wife called me up, and it's really funny. I'm like, I don't want you on the phone. And I said, but I have permission to say whatever I want. And when he comes crying back for mama to make everything feel okay, you tell him no. Do you know what I'm saying? Because, that's why I will never trust a guy that surrounds himself with women. Because they will always make their story sound so sympathetic that by nature, what will a woman do? Mm-hmm. I visited a family member in prison. And I used to talk to all the moms and stuff like that when they used to go for roll call. And the moms would say, he's really not that bad a kid. We're in prison. Maybe if you told your kid he's a little piece of shit sometimes and said everything's okay, you wouldn't be here. Okay, so I called the doc. And it's funny because I would ask him things on betterment of himself to be, and you know what he used for excuse? What'd you do on Saturday? Well, I woke up, took care of the kids, and then I spent all day with them. Really? What the hell are you doing spending 12 hours with your kids when your family is not fully provided for and stuff like that? See, they use the excuse to, because it sounds, because if you tell a bunch of women, I spent 12 hours with my kids on Saturday, a lot of women go, oh, that's so beautiful. Which reminds me of this. And this is my last statement on here as we go on a little bit more. A man does not need to spend time with his kids every night. Because
through the other two.
Yeah.
we're going to go through this. No, but it's all said there. So I want to kind of go through this. So no, but
We're
these
going
all
to have a
tie
serious
together.
conflict meeting.
Because, Skip, you being a business person, there's times that your time management has to be where, women, Leave It to Beaver is actually a bad example. Do you know why? Because if a guy is home every single night, how is he chasing his purpose and dreams and working on himself if he's sitting home every single night? Man, if you think this way, a dad, and you ever look at war stories? What were war stories that Grandpa always told? He was gone, he went off, he conquered, he came back, and everybody loved the story. Nobody likes, I went to work from 8 till 4, came home and had supper and watched TV. You're like, I want to talk to somebody else's grandpa. You know, Sam? What do you think of the statements on here?
All right. Personal growth. Let's just get back
Yeah.
to personal growth, considering that was the OG for tonight.
That's
and
right.
Before you hijacked it a little bit.
You guys get me all riled up.
Well, you gotta actually no. Okay, so the personal growth one. So I mean, I feel like 5 years ago I probably wouldn't have agreed with that, but now I can actually say today that I really do. I think that personal growth needs to come first. I think so. I mean, what even is personal growth, right? It's your ability to reach your full potential. And a man needs to go through a lot of personal growth if he's going to step into his life's purpose, if he's going to pursue his mission. And his life's purpose should come before his relationship with his woman or his family in this case. And I think that we need to understand that while there are most men care very, very deeply about their family, they also feel a greater calling in life, and they need to pursue that calling. Otherwise, their foundation it'll be weak. It'll just weaken and it'll crumble. And you worried me with that pen. And I think too that, yeah, of course, the family, the woman, all of them, they can be part of personal growth. They can be part of his mission and all of those things, but it's probably not the best if they are the center of that. And I think we also need to acknowledge that if a man does not have personal growth at the forefront, it's probably because he has a woman nagging in his ear.
Nagging in his ear?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Like, You're not home every night. You're not doing this. You're not doing that.
Yes.
So given the current conversations we've had over masculinity and the over feminization and the relinquishment that we've seen in men, the reason why when you say I will never trust a man who chooses his family over personal growth, and the reason why I say I disagree is because I believe now, probably more than ever, we have men who are by word and by statement fully steeped in personal growth and development, but void of the evidence.
Yes.
Because it's not seen.
Yes.
Fair.
So I disagree.
Well, that's an actor. You're twisting the words.
No.
If a
But
person's working on personal
But you
growth,
asked me, so I disagree. So right now, I would say
your disagreement because you agree. Because here's what happens: you wouldn't even have your job if you did that. You put your personal growth, and it's made you a better worker and a better father and stuff like that. So we can't twist words and go, here's the example of man. That guy's not personal growth.
No. Hold on.
Understand?
I'm the exception, not the rule in this current situation. Because we're making all these statements of.
But look at the statement. I will never trust a man. So the guy that's the rule right now that they're not working on personal growth, I'm saying I won't trust him.
So then what is the evidence then? Because there are a lot of people that will tell you flat out, oh, dude, I'm on personal growth. Oh, yeah, I read all the books. Oh, yeah, I mean, I go to seminars. I do this. I do all the personal growth.
I use the example
and
all the
their
time.
family is upside down, their relationships.
Right, but they're not working on personal growth. 'Cause if you look at it this way, I know people that go to church every week, read the Bible, read every personal development book, and guess what happens? I wouldn't let them watch my kids.
Okay, so
Yes.
if I can see the fruit that tells me that your personal growth,
Exactly.
the evidence of said personal
Yes.
growth is there, then I would have no problem you choosing your family, because I know that your personal growth has you at a place where you understand your time management and why you're choosing to actually choose your family in said situation versus sacrificing that time with your family. Because I will trust that man, because I think that his sound judgment, he's understanding that the choice of family is more important than the choice of diving into some personal growth book, seminar, TikTok reel, YouTube, whatever.
And that's why in here, and you can also tell a person, if somebody says, can you be my accountability partner? I'm like, no.
No, I will not be.
No, I'm not. Because you know why? A man that's on a growth process doesn't need accountability, because there's nothing that I can keep you accountable for. You either choose your heart, you choose discipline, and choose your regret. I can't make that decision for you. So what do I keep you accountable for? Consistently being putting the fault in your face that you're not working on. I can't make you work on it. See, that's what I said. That's why no joke, because this doctor said to me, well, keep me accountable. No, I won't keep you accountable. You're saying? It's like, what do you mean by accountability? What, that I'm sitting there yelling at you for you not pursuing and moving forward? And that's why I tell people, it's like, give up. Here, that's the thing. Here, it's really funny because I watch this happen all the time, and women actually suffer the most from this. And I think there's that nurturing trait that's there. Men will give up much faster than women ever will. They really will. They'll hold on to dear life and stuff like that. And sometimes, like I said, you just got to let go. You saying? People say, well, but I didn't let go and it worked out. Exception, not the rule. The exception, not the rule.
So to kind of go back to this,
Yep.
I will never trust a man who chooses his family. See, at the current state, men really aren't choosing their family.
Because they're not growing.
They're choosing self, period.
No,
Self-gratification.
no, gratification, but see, remember.
But that's self. That's still self. They're putting their own sense of need at higher priority level.
I will always put my self need over my wife and kids' needs.
Okay, so
Because
the
you know
guy
why?
that so the
'Cause
guy
now
that
I
just
can provide 10 times better, and I can be 10 times better for them. Because here, can you ever give from an empty cup? And let's go back to the biblical verse: love thy neighbor as you love their wife or your kids. You have to have self-love, self-need, self-all things. So then when I go to, and I've said this before, if a person walks into a situation and they're empty, what can they give? Nothing. So
But
they need to fill their cup.
But I think, again, exception, not the rule right now, because the guy that just told his kid or wife, whatever, get the kids out of here, I'm watching the game.
So
He's defaulting. He's thinking he's choosing family time. He's not working on personal growth and development.
Exactly. So I
right?
can't trust
But-
that person. Watching Packer game is not,
But to him, that
growth.
could be personal growth. This is my time. This is my decompressing. This is my, this is
I gotta
where.
think. Anybody here, watch this. Anybody here, I always love this one, and we used to deal with this. I used to have a doc said, I gotta recharge my batteries. And I said, and what they want to say is, I need my me time to recharge. What, from the life that you created for yourself? I find life very exciting, very exhilarating, so I can go 100 miles an hour forward every single day. What do I need to take a break from? The life I created? Honestly, tell me, well, I need to distract myself from the life that you created. You're going to avoid your problems even more instead of going with it head on that way. And then you'll enjoy life even more. See, that's the growth thing.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like there's situations where there might be problems that need more patience, though, and time?
I would
Thinking
say
of
there's
problems like
yeah.
when I recharge and I need to do that, it's not because I've stepped too far into the masculine or feminine. It's maybe that something has come across my path that was unexpected.
Yeah, but but remember, you're also a woman. You're also a woman. It's dramatically different for us compared to them, because we can go, and our body doesn't take a physical tear that way.
Oh no, I've seen that
And so
happen before plenty.
as far
That's
as
exactly how my husband is. It's
Yep.
100% go.
Yep.
But we both acknowledge that the recharge time is so needed to have like personal time, right? To have your own thoughts and not be prioritizing someone always above you. So like it's almost like an
So you just
ebb and
talked about
flow.
personal growth.
Right.
You're going to
Personal
reflect
growth.
on yourself for your own stuff that way. But here's what happens: this
As long
that
as
person
it's not
can't
an
watch
abuse,
a
right.
person. No one
That's
can
what-
convince me
Yeah.
that sitting watching a Packer game by themselves is helping you in any way, even gather your thoughts. You want to go sit in a room and be quiet, or grab a book and stuff like that. Something that you now can gather your thoughts and work on that way. Distraction is not growth. Since when is distracting yourself and taking a break from the life that you created growth? I just don't see it. I know it's convincing. I avoid, because that's all it is avoidance. You're saying I'm going to go this. I'm gonna watch the avoidance. You're saying, because you know what's really funny, because people lack personal growth, and I believe, and this is my personal belief. You guys can just get into this. I believe that the greatest personal growth places was supposed to be a church.
Say that again?
I believe that the greatest personal growth places were supposed to be churches. Not only the fact that you could have went and listened to somebody, and it's called a preacher. You're saying listen to somebody, learn some wisdom. Actually, what do you think Tony Robbins' seminar is? He's the preacher. You got a community of people getting together. What do you think Andy Frisella is that way? It's her favorite guy that way, the podcasters of that. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, way, it's actually a church. It's a community. You have somebody preaching something that seems wisdom that could pass down, and they're always challenging you to get better. And that's why I said, and so the aspect of it this way is like, so that's why I'm telling you're around me, there is no downtime. You saying? You're around me. And it was, and no joke, it was over spiritualized. It was women and everything speaking my life saying, don't.
So do you see rest as something that you only do when you sleep? Because where does rest fit into it? I'm curious.
Well, define rest, because I look at rest as sleep. Because here we talk about this. Does everybody believe here that we're going to die someday?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I wish if there's something I'm teaching my daughters more than anything right now, is everyone you guys have a time clock. And guess what happens is this. Do you know what's really funny? Remember when we were young? I said 48, I'm 49. Skip, how are you on 40 right now?
40.
Okay.
Yep.
I want you to think about this as far as, and if I can get guys to understand that, listen, your time is limited. Here, watch this. You see this all the time. Incredible movie and stuff like that. The bucket list. Do you understand that? They're trying to accomplish things before they die. But none of us are guaranteed to know when we're going to die. No one's guaranteed tomorrow. We know that. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. So therefore, if I want to leave a legacy, which we're called to do, if I want to add value and stuff like that to my family heritage to be able to pass down that way, I'm not going to get it by distraction. And so if I need physical rest for my body to recover, that's rest. Do you understand? But it's not distraction. So if I need to go to sleep, but here's what happens. I don't want to waste any waking hour, because if you were told tomorrow you got pancreatic cancer, you got 3 weeks to live, you would take every minute and try to maximize it. You wouldn't watch the Packers by yourself. Do you understand? If you knew your time was limited, the first thing you go for is spending time with people you know that you're leaving behind. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm
truly,
sorry.
our time is limited.
That's
People
the point.
It's a vapor.
That's the point.
Right.
And so I sit there and go, guys. So therefore, I'm looking at guys going, okay, and going, all right. I think it's ingrained in us too that we want to. Here, watch this. Anybody here want better for the kids than you had?
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that any of us had it bad. But the idea is this: how can you accomplish that distracting yourself? There has to be a purpose in order to do it that way.
So, okay, you just said it right there. So really, at the end of the day, it comes down to what is, and I think a lot of people today, women and men, have a hard time speaking to what their purpose is.
Sure. Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100%.
And in that inability to actually put said definition behind what their purpose is, what am I called to? Because they always say, you say, well, I'm a mom. No, you're not. Nope. I'm a father. No, you're not. That's not your
what you do.
Purpose. That's what you do. You know, we put it on all these action-based things, but that's not your purpose. And when people can't speak to it and they show up, they wake up, they clock in, they clock out, you know, and then they go home and then they just continue to do the check off list. That's why the Packer game. That's why sitting on, Facebook. That's why, going out becomes so appealing, because that's their time of connection and getting away from the checklist. It's because they have no sense of purpose. They have no sense of clarity.
Yep, well said.
So they vicariously live through these little moments of pause, which really become hours on end. Mm-hmm. of getting excited about somebody else who's purposed, somebody else who can actually put out in word, maybe action steps for better self-betterment, all these things. I must be doing it. I'm being prodded and piqued with interest. I should do these things, but for what? Because it's not going to change what I'm doing tomorrow. There's no, they don't have that purpose, which is driving the value to see that rest is not 3 hours.
Okay, we got two more of that answer on this. Great conversation, guys. I will never trust a man that chooses his family over personal growth. True man does not need accountability from another man.
I think it's a very absolute question, but I don't think there's a all or nothing approach to it. And I could steal pretty much 98% of what Ross said.
Steal it.
I think like, I'll admit I'm guilty. Like, I spend a lot of time reading books and studying and stuff like that, but the one area that I have to get better at is execution. And so that goes to what Ross said about, are we seeing, fruit on the tree? And I think I have to back up and refocus on what is my purpose.
So personal growth.
Yeah, because sometimes I'm like
See, it all comes back to that.
Yeah, it does. But I would say when you get good at personal growth, you can balance your personal growth with your involvement with your.
But what starts first, though?
The personal growth.
That's my point.
Yeah.
And see, that's what I come back to. And Dana, go ahead.
How realistic do you think like work-life balance is?
For me,
In general.
it could be better.
I just mean like, do you think it's attainable?
Yeah.
Do you, Skip?
It's not.
Why not?
There's a difference.
I agree with you.
It's a difference because balanced work life actually it doesn't exist depending on the role you're choosing to take on. If you've made a decision to create your life the way that your life is, whether it's to be at home the whole time where you have what they would call a life balance versus a work balance, to me, it's just balancing life, period. And it's the life that I chose to attain. Therefore, there's no balance there. I think when people try to have a work-life balance, they're trying to balance work with disregard or unplugging. That's what they want to have.
Yep.
And it's not so much being involved in life and understanding this is the life I chose, this is the life I created. Therefore, these are the steps I have to take where I manage time to be with my son or manage time to be with my daughter or my wife. And then where do I try to improve on that myself? That whole work-life balance thing, when people actually look at it from an actual way of context, it's just life balance. Not work life, because work's part of your life. Yep. And that's just a catchphrase bullshit that we've all been told and given. You know what I mean?
But it's also,
I think for me, it's prioritizing.
It is.
It's prioritizing what you want to do.
Does it mean that, does it balance? Are we looking for 50-50 constant, equal give and take? Or are we talking about balance that I recognize that there are going to be times where my family's going to have to take the hit because I have a priority to be able to provide, and it's going to take me, from my ability to have quantity versus quality kind of concept, right? Where I have to focus. You want all these nice things. I have to go do these things. I cannot be.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
What's this concept of balance between, because I think in the healthy concept, the balance is determined by you.
Yeah, and it's the same thing in balance inside the body when we look at a neurological perspective, is there are neurotransmitters in the body that are for fight or flight, and then there are neurotransmitters for rest and digest. And both are a give and take. And some will overexpress at times to keep you alive, and some will overexpress at times to allow you to actually thrive and recuperate and recover. So you have to have a give and take of both. But again, it's just your body. It's your life. And the points are fantastic.
Yeah.
I think too.
Wait, hold on. Let's go, Dana.
Sorry,
Dana. I
Dana.
want to finish up so we can get the
No,
full
it's all
discussion.
good.
Right.
I'm not sure that I have a whole lot to add.
Because then we're going to come back to Dana.
I don't have a ton
What
to
I have
add.
to say is I'm going to be relevant by then.
No.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yes, Willie. Yes, Willie.
She's very much at her leisure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's good stuff. I won't talk for 5 minutes about the exact same points that
All
we've
right,
already
Dana, then
spoken.
let's come back to you then.
So when you were talking about like what does that balance look like? So Skip and I were at like a conference a few months ago, and you remember how Sean put it? He put it really interestingly when he was talking about work-life balance, because I've kind of started to just think this way and somewhat employ this. I want to be as unbalanced as possible.
I'll say.
Yes.
As
Massive
unbalanced as possible. Sometimes it's going to be all about my kids. Sometimes it's going to be all about the family as a whole. Sometimes it's all about work. Sometimes a friend's going to need to take the forefront. Sometimes it's going to be my parents or a grandparent or whatever it is, and then it's going to be work again. And it's going to be unbalanced. And this idea that you can have balance on a daily or weekly basis, we need to throw that out. That's not real. In the grand scheme of your life, sure, maybe you can have some balance if you look at how you allocated your time there, maybe. But we're not going to have this on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly balanced. And you know what's actually like really hard? Balance. So
Balance.
let's just be unbalanced.
I think it's an unrealistic
Work-life
perspective.
balance
Right.
is cliche. It's a
Yeah,
cliche
exactly.
thing that people say,
but it is
I gotta
attainable.
have work-life balance. But the bottom line is you're constantly in flux and you're constantly
you go.
reprioritizing
Exactly.
what things are important. And for you to have a 50-50 that says, I'm going to do this amount of this at this time and this amount of this at that time, requires everybody else externally to willingly participate in your wanting to have 50-50. And that's
Now let me ask
That's
you guys
not
a question.
realistic.
Let
Yep.
me ask you guys a question for a second. Who do you think created the concept of work-life balance? Men or women?
It's a feminine.
It's a
It's a
feminine
feminine
trait.
Thank
issue.
you.
Because they wanted the
And-
men to come home.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And see, that's the thing. See, if you look at it this way, my mom told me a story one time. Is my grandpa had a construction business. He left before they got up on Monday, came home after they went to bed on Monday night, did that 6 days a week, and they went to church and hung on Sunday. Not once did my mom was one of 10 kids, and my grandma stayed home with all of them. Not once did they feel like their dad didn't love them.
My dad was gone pretty much every day. Actually, when I was a kid, I knew
And-
very
and-
much that I was loved.
And that's the point. And see, that's why we look at all these things. And here's what happens: I don't want a balanced doctor. I want the best. And if you think of it this way, and I can get rid of the whole concept of balance and distraction stuff of this just by the aspect of when I sit down with somebody. Do you know the first thing I ask them about when it comes about what they want to accomplish in life, or even being a good dad, good mom, good anything, is their time. Do you understand that the majority of people waste so much time in a day, it'll blow your mind away. They waste so much time. I just cannot. I will not.
Well, I'm I'm guilty of that, and I'll be the first to. I'll admit it. I do at times screw my time up and don't do a very good job of it. I come back to an employee years ago that I had interviewed, and one of the questions I asked is, why do you want to work here? And she said, I just want a better work-life balance. She's coming from a factory job. And my next question back to her was, do you want a better work-life balance, or do you just want Fridays off? It was dead silence. And no comment back. Because it's how do they want the balance of their life? Do they just want a day off so they can get away from things? And obviously that would be a better answer, is that I just don't want to work on Fridays and you work Monday through Thursday. Cool. You were honest. The better thing of work-life balance tells me that there's something missing in their life, and they feel that work is the thing that's keeping them from finding what's attainable to their life. But if they would just freaking do the shit that they're passionate about, you hear the cliche that I'd never work a day in my life. But it's what you love and what you want to do that drives you. And I think that at the end of the day, if we don't have somebody to help us find our passion or help us light the fire or move us towards what passion is, then we're constantly in the search of that word balance, of what I'm doing isn't self-fulfilling. What I'm doing doesn't lead me to self-gratification of what I love to do. And to your point, Patrick, of self-growth. Well, if what you're doing isn't leading you to self-growth, then you are just the hamster on the hamster wheel, and that's what people want to avoid. That's why you'll find the guy that just walks through nature and doesn't do shit. He's the happiest person on earth because all he's doing is he's doing what he wants to do for himself, which is, again, personal growth and development, and allows him then to be, if it's to be a better father at home or to be a better spouse or to do that, it's because he's choosing what he wants to do and growing himself and not putting everybody else above him.
That's what I wrote down as soon as you said that. Is fulfillment. Is most people, I think, when we talk about this concept of balance, they're trying to find temporary deposits of fulfillment,
Yeah.
purpose, happiness.
And that's why I come back to the aspect of accountability. Because if you have a person working on their growth, what do you keep them accountable? How can you keep somebody accountable for their purpose? Think about that. And that's what I'm going, and that's why I kind of look at going, if you're working on your growth, you're going to be working towards that. What do I need to be held accountable for? Because you either got the pain of discipline, move in that direction, or got the pain of regret never getting there. The majority of people live in the pain of regret all the time. And then they come to me and go, and I tell people, like, here's where you are in life. You want to get here. And because that's why I talk about other guys. I'm sorry. It's like, and like I said, you guys know my stance on this. I really wish that things were kind of a little bit of olden days, built around church, community, come together, help, things that I really do. I wish there was someplace I could personally go. I really do. Because I know everybody loves to learn. You know what I'm saying? But the idea is it doesn't truly exist, and therefore, if I'm coming to you and the accountability part is going, hey, listen, if I have to constantly keep you accountable, you're never going to get there. That's a self-accountability. You can't. People say, I love personal growth. Really? Then why are you always asking for help? A person on self-growth doesn't need accountability because they may go somewhere to ask to see. I tell people, how do you know if somebody's growing? Sometimes it's not about their fruit when they first start, because nobody has any fruit when they start. But what happens is a person I can always tell is growing if they're always asking questions to move forward. And they will search out people that have personal growth. They'll search out people and say, you got $100 million. How'd you do that? Be honest with me.
Ask questions.
That's it. See, that's why I can always tell somebody's growing. But then what happens is this. They can't be asking the same questions all the time.
So in this preparation, which you didn't get, right? I looked into accountability because I think it's been definitely, God, I feel like feminized, but it's been turned into something it shouldn't be, which is prolonged excuses, patterns of behavior that just perpetuate stupidity instead of obedience. Obedience to what? Self?
Discipline.
To the things that you said you were going to do. Being a man of your word. So accountability, it's the acceptance of responsibility for honest and ethical conduct towards others in business, accountable to shareholders, employees, and the wider community. But this is the part I loved. A willingness to be judged based on your performance. So I'm okay with that. But that means that there's a consequence potentially coming. And most accountability today is just emotional, verbal fluff with completely void of consequence, which we're seeing in the home, which we're seeing in politics, which we're seeing in the church, because there's no checks and balances. You can't question. You can't even have a healthy debate on certain things. You can't give input because then you're being, deemed as being disrespectful. You're out of line. And it's just like, no, there's consequences, right? When you're being held accountable based on your performance. And that's where I go back to just life, show up, to take it back. Being held accountable. I think a man should be held accountable to the way he's showing up as husband to his wife. And it's her place to be able to maybe point that out to him based on performance. That's what accountability should be. It's not 9 weeks of a Bible study and a guys group holding your hand. How you doing, brother? How you doing with your porn addiction? How you doing with, your gambling addiction or your alcohol abuse, whatever it is, right? And we create these emotional pockets of, oh, just tell me about it. No, that's not accountability.
Now I got a question for
At
you
all.
ladies. Okay, Dan, we'll start with you. So as we're talking about all these things, and a lot of the podcast too, we're really talking about holding men, to a higher standard in growth and things like that. If you see a man growing, what's your attraction level to him? Dan, let's start with you.
Much greater.
Now I want all the audiences, because we have 5 beautiful women in this room right now. Do you understand? I always tell guys, the world's your oyster if you're working on your 3 main things: your mind, muscle, and money. because that mind is that personal growth that way. Nicolette, what was it like to you?
Same as Dana.
Which is what?
Which is what?
It increases.
May I ask you a personal question?
Yeah.
And I apologize, your ex may hate me. Who's more attractive than, because it sounds like your ex didn't have the growth that your current husband has.
Right. Our growth did not align.
So
Right.
therefore, could you say that you lost attraction to the first husband that way?
You know, I'll put it this way. My kids say sometimes they don't understand how we were ever together, let alone married,
Yeah.
because they don't see it because
Right.
of how we exhibit and live our lives. Now, does that mean that there's been growth on both sides substantially? Absolutely. It's like one of those perfect situations, right? It's a perfect situation.
Now, I want to elaborate on that, but Dana, let you answer the question first.
Oh yes, much more hotness.
Okay.
But yeah, let's go back.
Yeah.
So much hotness. I agree.
So much hotness.
Yeah, and so I got a question for you then. Do you think then, and I want you guys to run with this because maybe I'm wrong. Now, here's something is debatable for me to even change the idea, is the fact that guys have more control over you finding them attractive just by their personal growth than anything else. Because we did a poll one time and said, ladies, what do you find the most attractive? Mind, muscle, or money? It dominated mind. So you see their character development, you see their personal development, and that's why I say guys gotta have their mind, muscle, and money. Because, and then you have a good mind, your muscle and money are gonna come.
Yeah, it just follows. Yeah.
They're gonna come. Do you say, here's what happened to this. Yeah, I got pretty deep tonight, which is great. Like I said, I'm still gonna come back to this, that when people, I believe that the establishment, let's just call them that, doesn't want people to have these kind of discussions, doesn't want people to get in the room and discuss these things because conflict comes, emotions come, different things, but you can really work this kind of stuff out.